Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of the Rewatch podcast, presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, survivor of the Battle of Hardhome. Joining me this fine recording session are one Nick Castillo.
Hello, everyone. I am the gift.
Sure you are. One Stephen Howard.
Stephen Howard. Shame, shame, shame.
Spoiler.
Confess.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Amanda Howard.
I've seen many episodes. I'll take my chances with you.
And last, but never ever least, Gary Delaney.
I want to break the wheel and hope. I want to break it.
So you're going to break both the wheel and hope?
And dreams.
All right, we are gathered here to discuss episodes 7 and 8 from season 5. Episode 7 was titled The Gift. Jon heads east as trouble begins to stir for Sam and Gilly at Castle Black. Sansa asks Theon for help. Tyrion and Jorah are sold as slaves. Cersei savors her triumph over the Tyrells as new plots are developed in the shadows. All right. So to kick off our discussion of this episode here is right away, I get to utter my favorite phrase I've been uttering in this podcast. Fuck one Sir Alistair Thorne there right away, and his glaring glance there at Jon as him and the members of the Night's Watch and Tormund basically get ready to head north of the Wall to try and meet up with the Wildling encampment at Hardhome there. But my question here...
To be fair, Tormund does kind of egg it on and like hard stare over at Alistair as he's uncuffed.
True.
Yeah, but Alistair would stare, but even if he hadn't done it, let's be honest.
I don't know. I give Alistair Thorne a lot more credit because he could have just said, yeah, enjoy your time with the deadly wildlings. And if you don't come back, I become the new master. I become the new, in charge. Like, he actually does intentionally try to warn Jon that this is a bad idea. Nick?
I'll tie on to that a little bit, too. Of all the ways that he could have been Alistair Thorne, he does say, I believe it's my duty to tell you this is foolhardy and this is a terrible idea. So he's like being himself and saying what we all are worried he's thinking, but he's doing it in a very, for him, respectful way. So that's true, Gary. I'll jump on that board with you.
So yeah, that was going to be my opening question there of like, is he right in his statement there? Is Jon doing basically reckless? Which, I mean, Jon is the Lord Commander, the leader in charge, the newly elected leader in charge of the Night's Watch, and he's now just saying, hey, I'm heading to Hardhome there basically to bring these wildlings south of the Wall. Stephen.
At first I did want to jump on Gary's bandwagon as well. I do think in terms of how he could be a jerk, this is the best way. And he is, at least, if nothing else, he is faithful to his, well, at this point at least, he's faithful to what he believes is right. How about that? But I actually think that, and I'm not a huge Jon, supporter. No one thinks of me as a huge Jon the Snow supporter, but I think this is a good idea. I think this is a calculated gamble against a adversary of unfathomable power, and you need all the allies you can get. He's going to lose without them. So what happens if he gambles and loses before that too? It's not a big deal, but if he gambles and wins using that, I think that's a good idea. So I think it's a calculated gamble. I don't think the men of the South necessarily like it or appreciate it because they do not understand the unfathomable power coming at them yet. But I think it was a good idea.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think both sides are doing the best that they understand to do. Alistair Thorne and Night's Watch folks only know that the wildlings have been after them for forever, or at least have been aggressive towards them forever, and they know nothing of the White Walkers or the Whites, and so for them, their main leader, who they just recently elected's first task is to go abandon them to bring back the enemy. So yeah, of course, Alistair Thorne, I think, to answer your question, is justified in telling them this is stupid. Don't do that. It's a gamble. But we have, the omniscient view of knowing that what John's doing is the best of the worst moves he has available to him.
So I think I've asked this question before, and I'll kind of ask it again here. We always kind of go back to like us, the viewers, obviously knowing what's going on in the world here and everything. The problem, and it's not ever quite explained really in the show, and I don't remember how its explanation really goes in the book, or I don't think there's really much. It's slightly different in the book and stuff like that, but you know, all of the Rangers basically went north of the wall with Gior Mormont. Not all of them came back. They were all attacked at the Fist of the First Men by the White Walkers, the army of the undead. When they come back, you know, it seems like nobody is believing this threat north of the wall that is not the wildlings. They're basically, everyone still thinks the wildlings are this great threat and they don't understand. No, they are just trying to get south of the wall because of the coming threat there. Steven.
I think that's entirely plausible, and I think that is. I think you could see that in our everyday politics today. You don't believe something until it's actually right there, regardless of the secondary information you might get, unless it's primary history or primary sources. You're not going to believe it, and I could very easily hear whoever it might happen to be at the wall saying, "No, they were attacked by wildlings, but they were just so. I mean, they were probably just didn't even know what was happening. I mean, how could you fail to that?" And blah blah blah, and whatever. It doesn't have to be real. Doesn't have to be even a shred of reality. But like Tyler's saying, they don't actually know what happened. So conspiracy theories can proliferate, and you're gonna try to go towards what you believe is possible. And believing that the undead have come back is a little bit of a hard sell.
Also, I think there's some percentage of that that's like they trust the wall of being impenetrable because they just were attacked and they were able to hold the wall like I don't know, it's like 50-1,
Like 500 to 1 almost.
500, I think,
Yeah.
or one more than
so
that.
they maybe are just overly confident in the wall being enough of a force that like the bad things will stay on the other side of the wall, and even if they come this way, they can't get through.
I was going to mention too, I think as far as communicating the hazard, I don't think anybody came back of all the Rangers that did go north and come back and say we got attacked by White Walkers. Because wasn't it when they ran back from the Fist of the First Men, they only made it to Craster's house, and that's where they revolted? How did that go?
There were
When
some.
John came back, his big comment was, "Hey, they know how many troops we have, and that's why we need to go stop them."
But guys like Ed and Sam, I mean, obviously
Right.
they have a hard time believing Sam. Gren was there when they were attacked by White Walkers.
Duff got back.
I think, yeah, enough got back that were part of the
Okay.
original Raging Party that were attacked by White Walkers. But the problem is, and I think Steve and Gary both kind of hit on two different points there that really kind of probably hammer home what's going on here. Of just like they might not see these people as reliable sources, and or the view that the wall has withstood attack for hundreds of thousands of years. There, basically, what's a supposed army, the air quotes undead, going to do about it?
Okay.
All right. I will throw it over to Nick then. Come on, hit us with your points here, sir.
Hit me with your best shot. So I had in this particular one, not so much the immediate, but I did have the part there about Master Aemon talking about when he's laying in bed and he's making references to bygone years, and he mentions Egg, which was Aegon the Fifth, his younger brother. And it's a really interesting story, just to kind of see, like, how the mighty have fallen, and the age will consume us all. And he's like one of the only characters to die of old age in this series, and I thought that was really cool. So I make a note about that.
Definitely the only Targaryen to die of old age.
Absolutely, the only Targaryen for it. My question in that first series there, where he's just kind of talking to him about how he's getting older and older, and then unfortunately, which as my next point, it ties into the next scene as we see he does pass after he's kind of rambling in his sleep there. My question was, is there anything you think Master Aemon, in referencing his old family or maybe thinking about his old life, that he wanted to try and like fix or correct? Like we had heard him in some earlier episodes talk about how he knows his family was brutally murdered. They killed my brother and my brother's son. Talking about the Mad King. Do you think there's anything he regretted about the way his life turned out?
So his brother is the Mad King, or his brother was the father of the Mad King?
I think the father.
Okay.
He said
I think so.
convincingly. I'll do some digging, but I believe that he was the Mad King's uncle.
Okay.
But what were your thoughts?
I think that he probably has to regret something, having to have gone to the wall, having to have given up a little bit of what happened out there. And to his credit, he took very seriously the vow he made to the Night's Watch, and he did just let the Targaryens fall and didn't go back. And he pulled I was about to say a Rob, but it's not a Rob. But what's his name? Jon Snow. He pulled a Jon Snow. He saw his family absolutely getting crushed and stayed. And that takes unfathomable willpower. And I think you've got to regret something. I mean, regardless of how faithful you are to it, you've got to regret something at that point.
I think that's fair. Sorry, I'll let you go here in just a second. I had written down too that comment from an earlier episode. Love is the death of duty, and duty is the death of love. He wanted to be a maester, and that's why he went to the Citadel, and he ended up there. So interesting. Tyler, what do you think?
So just real quickly too, I pulled up the kind of like family lineage there. Aemon Targaryen, Maester Aemon, I believe he's the oldest son basically in this family lineage there, and then his younger brother Aegon Targaryen was then who became king and is the father of Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King.
Thank you.
And then I won't go into too much more talking there too, but I would probably just totally agree with Steven's point there of like he stayed faithful to his sworn duty there, but he probably has some regrets in his not helping his family, or I don't even know how he really could have helped his family kind of from his position. Gary?
Also, I think like based on when he saw the Targaryen dynasty fall, he was probably a little older than Jon. So he's lived half of his life with the after Robert's Rebellion.
I'd say too. He was probably like I wouldn't say older than he was definitely older than Jon. I'd say more. He was like
age maybe. Like
Jorah.
According to the book right now, he's 102.
Yeah.
Holy moly! I was gonna say like 80. But like, aren't we only like 15-ish years past Robert's Rebellion?
Something like
not
15,
not too far.
Jon is.
Yeah, however old Jon is. I think Jon's like about 16 in the books.
That's true. And Ned has the worst honor. How could you do that? Oh,
anyway,
my second point.
Maester Aemon's had like 15 years, to where he probably had a lot more of a, similar to Jon, like a very tumultuous decision when the Mad King was being mad about should I step in, because he still would have been an heir apparent to take over from the Mad King, and then Robert's Rebellion. I'm sure he probably had a couple different points that made him question leaving the dynasty. I don't think it was just Robert's Rebellion. I'm sure he probably got some other news that maybe made him question it before that. So he might have been dealing with these moral dilemmas for 10 years before that. Nick?
Could be. Hearing Robert's name mentioned so much, I just had a quick flashback to Robert saying he'll kill any Targaryen he gets his hands on. I wonder why he never pursued Aemon up there at the Night's Watch. I mean, Aemon's oath and the words is that I'll father no children and hold no titles. So maybe for the rest of his days, he just trusts him to be an honest man. rather than leave the Night's Watch and throw a claim or his hat in the ring for it. But it's interesting. I didn't think of that they would have known each other. Certainly, Robert would know Aemon is up there.
He may have forgotten too. Like Eamon mentions, we give up our house names when we become Maester. So not only did he have the Maester thing, but then he had the Night's Watch. So it might have been out of sight, out of mind.
That's true. And Robert did drink a lot.
There's that.
So that ties into my second quick point in this particular scene. Is the next scene, and now his watch is ended. We see Master Aemon has passed and is laying there on the pyre. I'll let Tyler offer his 2 cents about the beloved Alliser Thorne. But my thought there is, as Alliser leans over and reminds Sam that his allies are dwindling, what do we think Sam's options are? Like, what do you, I mean, we've mentioned a couple times that he's in danger. He's not the most well-liked. Obviously, he can't defend himself well. Even Master Aemon had mentioned, get him south, Gillyflower, in reference to young Sam. What do we think Sam's next moves are without Aemon there to kind of protect him? Tyler?
I mean, I think Sam is basically just going to tread water as much as he kind of can until Jon returns, or Jon doesn't return, kind of whatever happens there. Because I don't think, like we've said, he's not much of a fighter, although he does take a stand for himself and Gilly kind of in this episode there as well. But I mean, it was only against two lower level members of the Night's Watch. They're not somewhat more trained like Alliser Thorne is. Also, too, I want to quickly point out this one thing, and it's the first time I've noticed him, but I think he's in earlier episodes too. There's a guy who became somewhat famous towards the end of the Game of Thrones show. He was famous for being an extra because he always showed up consistently throughout the run of the series there. Like his name's like Andrew or something like that, but I just wrote down Andy the extra shows up standing next to Sam there at the funeral pyre. Amanda.
I didn't realize that.
I just want to throw a shout out to Sam from my favorite quote here was, I killed a White Walker. I killed a Thenn. I'll take my chances with you. Loved that part so much.
Yeah, that part as well thereafter where Sam, I'd wrote down another quote there that Sam had. What kind of man would I be if I didn't step in when I see you're in danger? Like, oh, Sam's good. I wrote down, Sam is the true gift of this episode. So, I have another point about that, not to slow us down here at the beginning. We'll pull another, the melting of the ice sword episode. But I do have another good point here as well that I can ramble on with, unless we have anything else.
Obviously, you guys love Sam more than anyone else. I didn't think he was...
You not like Sam? Hold on.
I like Sam.
Pause the recording here.
Do
you not like Sam?
I don't. I think that they overplay how weak he is. I think that they. He's a big dude. Like, you realize he could just run at them full speed and just run them over, and do more damage than just getting punched in the face 5 fucking times. Like, it is. They stupefy the level of shitty he is at fighting. Understandably, these guys are bigger and stronger than him, but a raging fat man can do some damage. I think that is bullshit. Like, also, if he's always been the little guy in fights, kick him in the crotch. If that doesn't work, kick him in the crotch again. If that doesn't work, punch him in the jugular. If that doesn't work, do both simultaneously. Like, they just pussified him out way too fucking much.
Okay, can we clip that portion of Gary, and I just want to play it like they did Shia LaBeouf in the You Can Do It thing?
I want to attend Jared Delaney's.
He could have done more damage than they showed him doing.
No, sorry, man. I'm going to cut in front of you real quick. I really don't think he could have. Being a fat man myself and being a fat kid, there have been fights that you get into against probably a little bit more, shall you say, fit people, and you can't do that much damage to them because you can rumble, toil, and trumble, and they can move out of your way.
I want to attend Gary Delaney's school of learning how to fight good.
Right, I am fascinated by this
Good.
advice
Yeah.
here.
Just like, I just don't. I think that they just make him seem way too weak. Like they obviously he's not going to win, but he could have like it didn't even seem like they let him put up a fight, or that Gilly would have put up a fight. Like,
It's funny to hear you say that, because reading the books, they honestly, and they made him braver for the show. They made him so much braver for the show, because in the books he's still sitting here, explaining to John that he can't do anything because he's too scared.
Interesting. I have a question.
Well, that maybe makes sense, and so like it. But it's just.
I have a counterpoint for you, Gary. Why do they stop beating him up in that scene?
Because the doggy comes.
Because Ghost comes in, right? If we see Sam defend himself and be this awesome hard charger battle, we forget that the true hero of this series, Ghost, who's a very good boy, is still around, even though John's not there. And so I thought that was actually a good counterpoint too.
Kind of weird, because I would think he'd bring Ghost with him. Although I guess as he's the Lord Commander, he doesn't probably have to have a rule where Ghost is chained up the entire time, because he's the fucking boss. Ghost can go wherever he wants, and he knows Ghost isn't going to hurt anybody. But
he's willing to risk his own life against the White Walkers, but not Ghost. He's a good boy.
Ghost is a good boy.
Ghost is a good boy. All right, that's what I had for that first scene there. Unless anyone else has anything else, I can turn it over to someone.
I just think the most important part of this entire podcast has now been agreed that Ghost is a good boy.
Yes.
All right. Is that it for you then, Nick, for this episode?
That's it for me.
All right, Steven.
So I think I have 2 points here. The first one, and this is maybe a niche point because of what comes after it, but I kind of focused in on Stannis and Davos have a conversation during this episode about basically the military tactics going into fighting against Ramsay Bolton. And
The hero of the revolution.
Yeah, the hero of the revolution. Davos advises Stannis to back off. And we're used to Davos being the absolute word of wisdom. And I was thinking about this. Are Davos's words really wise in this case? Because Stannis makes a very good counterpoint for, if he falls back, he will be the king who retreated. And he keeps doing that. And a lot of victory on the battlefield is won by daring and by boldness. It's not won by being cautious or by being smart even all the time. It's bold. And I found myself agreeing in the uncomfortable position of agreeing with Stannis, and that win or lose, they march forward, and that's the only way forward for him. If they go to Castle Black, they winter at Castle Black, and he's done. I don't see him coming back from that.
I have to agree with you in that I actually thought something similar. Like, honestly, he's right. Like, he's going to lose in the eyes and hearts of plenty of people, and that might be enough to knock him out. On the other hand, it's winter, dude. Are you gonna fight winter? Good luck. Many have tried. Just ask the Russians.
You punch it in the crotch at the same time, so you fight winter.
Yeah, like, I feel like it was a tough decision, but I feel like you can try to go forward, and I agree that you're definitely going to lose according to people, but at this point, that means that you were willing to give your entire life to this. Your choice.
Mm-hmm.
Gary?
I think maybe it's just a proof that Davos is. I thought it was a smart-ish move, because Davos values honor and he values life. Like, although it may look bad for Stannis, ultimately wintering at Castle Black or taking your time is going to allow more people to live. Like, we're not gonna just throw bodies into the void for your honor. Like if you're gonna make people fight in a battle that they can have a possibility of winning. Also, Davos and Stannis have both survived the Blackwater, and Davos maybe is a little burned by that. Like, he woke up on a rock, like jumping off a ship lit on fire, where Stannis literally had to be dragged out of the battle. Like they both survived a battle that they were out of their element. So I think that probably maybe just changed Davos, where he believes in Stannis, but he doesn't believe that Stannis values life. Tyler?
And the other thing too is, like, with winter coming, are they even prepared to do a siege of a castle like Winterfell? There, this ginormous, basically, structure in the north that is set up to basically survive the winters of the area. Like, it just doesn't seem like it's basically like he's going ahead to either win or lose. There will be no draw. There will be no retreat for him. He's either going to secure the castle or he's going to die trying. Steven.
And I'd say that for him, there is only win or lose. There is no middle ground there. And so if he withdraws, that might be a middle ground for. And I think that's a good point. He's on the side of the live. Davos is on the side of the living, and that's a draw for everyone else. Yeah, no, it's a good idea, but I think it's an entirely a loss for Stannis, and he doesn't have that option. So I think they're in an uncomfortable position. But that's an army's position, right? And every army soldiers would be better off if they never fought a war. Doesn't mean that'd be better for the countries or the people that they're fighting for.
True.
One thing to consider too, even with Stannis' army, isn't an actual army. It's a lot of hired soldiers there, pretty much. He's paying a lot of money from the Iron Bank to recruit these soldiers. Are they really going to want to stick around at a barren castle throughout a harsh winter?
You mentioned, it's not always good for the country, but then Tyler's point as well, the in between there about they're hired, they don't share the same cause. You think of like Valley Forge. It's freezing cold temperatures and abysmal conditions, but I'll beat you to it. There you go. But that's the whole premise, is that you have people who believe in the cause, and they have something at stake there. They said that the sellswords from across the sea all ran off in the night because they're not tied to it. That's not their kind of battle. And then you lose. You set yourself up for failure.
Is Valley Forge a John Wayne movie?
Oh my gosh, what?
Just keep going. Just keep going.
I'm assuming this is a joke, Gary, and it's painful.
Gary, are you trying to get all of us upset?
Half a joke. I've heard of it. No idea. I didn't pay attention in history class. Sorry.
Just keep going. It's too big a rabbit hole.
Anyone can hear it. Steven has his mouth open. I've just put a dagger in his heart.
There's a line
Steven is
repeating in my
shocked.
head. This is not a history podcast. This is not a history podcast.
Steven is doing everything he can to keep himself from giving Gary a complete rundown of Valley Forge right now.
Anyway, we can move forward.
Yeah, I've got something else, but I'll hold it for the moment.
All right, do you have anything else, Steven?
I did one other thing, and this is kind of a implication of Daenerys' anti-slavery policy and the being sold into slave Tyrion and Jorah Mormont being sold into slavery, and then finding a way around, and I'm putting this in quotation marks for everyone, of fighting in the pit, because they don't allow slaves to fight in the pits. But what if you pay them a meager menial salary? Well, now they're free, so you can actually, and this is just an implication of, sure, she has freed people from slavery, like straight up slavery, but there are major ways around this, and I think you're fighting a culture that I don't think she necessarily entirely understands. I don't think she necessarily understands how to get rid of the slavery and the culture of slavery in the area, because if the word slavery is not used, she doesn't seem to notice it.
So while I agree with you that there's all these ways around it and stuff, could you also though take it from the other side of like, she set out the decree of like, we're going to get rid of slavery. Okay, that's her big grand idea. Now it's up to others to kind of try and find the minute details of this thing to kind of help eliminate. I mean, yes, she's the ruler, she's in charge of everything like that. But as we know too, even with history, like a lot of times kings and queens don't get down and dirty with a lot of, I'm sure, the minute details. Like even in this show, the king had the hand. The hand basically set forth the policy with the small council of how they were going to rule the kingdom there. Some kings were more involved than others, but that's kind of how it went there. So is she like totally to blame for this? Not really, but also too, I agree though with your point of like, she's fighting a cultural war of like, this region has known slavery for generations there. You can't come in and just wipe out slavery in one quick fell swoop there and expect it all to just go away. Sorry, Gary.
I was gonna kind of agree that like she freed all these slaves, but she didn't really leave a organizational structure like a governor or a warden of the North to oversee the areas that she's taken, and somebody, because she never left anyone she trusted behind or appointed anyone. They were only advisors to her, and that's how the power structure was built. Like they didn't have she didn't have a governor or somebody that could, as you said, like put forth her will indirectly. Steven?
That was actually the point I wanted to make, is that while I agree with you,
episode, boom.
I have to not. For the rest of this episode, I will not agree with Gary. But anyways, no, so Tyler, I think in a functioning government, I think you'd be right. But what we've seen from Dany is she's a very top-down rule, and I was writing that down as Gary said it. Is she's very top-down. She doesn't have governors. She doesn't have lieutenants really. She maybe has advisors. That's about the extent of it. And so when we're talking about this promulgation of an edict where it takes some nuance to be actually able to execute, that does fall in her camp. If she's not going to delegate that to someone else to execute, it falls directly in her camp. And so I do still put it at her feet. Maybe it's maybe this is where she's not served as well by what's his name, knight who died at the beginning of the episode or beginning of the season. Barristan. I bet Barristan Selmy, or if she had better, maybe if she had better advisement on this, she would have appointed. Well, so I'm debating with myself here. Sorry. She did have Barristan Selmy before that, and he never said appoint a governor. He never said appoint someone else from the local council to be able to rule in your stead and be able to enact this stuff. So I'm not sure. I do put this at her feet. Amanda?
In the books, I'm pretty sure she set a council of made up of both freedmen and former masters, but the movies don't show that, so I don't know if we can give them credit for that or not. I will put at her feet the fact that she removed the system, but she didn't give them some way to. Their entire structure was set up as this. Their entire, as you said, like their culture revolved around this, and I hesitate to draw too many parallels to our own country with this, but I wouldn't. That was the South had the same problem. Their economy was set up around this, and those people were willing to fight tooth and nail to protect what they saw as their culture and their economy, regardless of the fact that it was built on the backs of slaves. We're still suffering repercussions from figuring that out, and people who are not willing to see their way of life or what they view as their way of life taken away from them. And I just forgot what my other thought was going to be.
It happens.
I wanted to throw a little thing out there. I wrote down my little quote from Daenerys when Dario tells her at one point to gather all the masters and slaughter them, and Daenerys does snipe back, "I am a queen, not a butcher." So just want to put that out there, Stephen. If you have any thoughts you'd like to say about that, go ahead. Otherwise, Tyler's turn.
My one counterpoint to one of your points earlier, Stephen, was like, Barristan Selmy was advising her, yes, but I wouldn't ever consider Barristan Selmy somebody to advise her on the happenings of common life. He was more of, it felt like to me, a bodyguard and just like, hey, this is some trivia about your brother and your family there. Basically, I think I'm trying to say is Barristan Selmy is not somebody I would probably necessarily turn to and like, how do we set up an economical system here that works for these freed slaves now? Yes, though,
Fair statement.
she's still sort of like, it's a failure on her advisorship and also her too to basically not realize, because I think this is even touched on a lot in the books there of like, she doesn't set up anything in this vacuum that she creates by wiping out the original system, which is why in the books this is more pronounced. The other cities eventually get retaken back over by masters, slavers, whatever it was, and rise up against her then. Nick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everybody in her camp is a warrior. Jorah was a bodyguard, a warrior with the Khal Drogo, and Barristan Selmy, certainly. Grey Worm, Daario Naharis. She really doesn't have any political people at this point. So maybe that changes next episode. But
What about
it'd
the
be good to have
Missandei lady?
But no, even that too. Missandei's more, a voice of reason than a political person. She probably witnessed a lot, being the translator for this other person that she was with in Yunkai. But I don't think that she was really privy to the understandings of why, other than just translating it. So I don't. She's probably a good person to rely on more so than I would, Barristan Selmy or Grey Worm's intentions for it. But it'd be interesting nonetheless. Yeah, I had. I think there was one other little thing in there that I wanted to, because there's something right before the end of this episode where don't we go back to the Night's Watch and doesn't Ollie bring Sam something? That's a previous episode?
Next episode.
Next episode. Okay, sorry. I must have had that written down in the wrong spot. All right, never mind. I'll get to that at one point then. Yeah, I did have that line as well then that that Amanda threw out about I am a queen, not a butcher. And Daario's rebuttal to that as well. Daario Naharis is laying with Daenerys, and he says, all rulers are either butchers or meat. And so, if only cis deal in absolutes, if you're going to be one or the other, what do you want to be? So, light match, run away.
I actually, I also think it's interesting. I mean, we keep giving her grief because she didn't have a system to put in place and everything. On the other hand, I don't think any of us, including Daenerys, expected to stay. She thought she'd come along, abolish slavery, all hail, good job, move on our merry way, just like she did at Astapor. She left behind a council, which I'm pretty sure has been slaughtered by now, because Astapor revolted and took back over and went right back to their slave making ways. But Daenerys, all of her advisors are telling her, let's go, let's move it. We got to go to Westeros. We got, things to do, thrones to take. Let's go. Kingdoms to conquer. Daenerys was the one that said finally, after she watched what happened to Astapor and what was starting to happen to Meereen, that she said, I'm going to stay and rule and be a queen, actually help them.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Stephen? So we can go to you.
So we can say all we want that, oh, I'm a queen, not a butcher. What was the first thing that she did after taking every single city? Slaughter the inhabitants of the city by sacking it. What was the first thing in Meereen itself, or is it Meereen that they're in right now? Sorry.
Yunkai didn't get slaughtered.
Wise masters are crucified, right?
No, she's crucified everyone. She crucified everyone. That's the reason why she has what's his name with her right now, because he crucified his uncle. And that's big talk saying that I am not a butcher. It maybe makes her feel good at night, but it's not the reality of the case.
Can't argue that.
So, I just want to paint a quick picture here, high level, 1,000-foot view. If we step back, she doesn't have the right people around her, it sounds like we're thinking, to help her put a political system she wants in place. She doesn't want to be a butcher. She wants to be a benevolent ruler, but it doesn't sound like she's making the right steps. Do we think she's going down the right path?
I'll let Steven answer the question, and then I had
I don't think she's going down the right path. I think when you have this is a common phrase today, when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. And all
Absolutely.
she
Love that
has
one.
is a council of military advisors. If all you have is a council of military advisors, the only solutions you're going to get are martial ones.
I
She's
agree
not
with
going to
that.
have any, no political answers, no civic answers, and you cannot rule based on military might. You might be able to intimidate, but you cannot rule.
Solid response. Gary?
I was just gonna say, like, I a point before you asked the question of where is she going was, I think it's still apparent that even after the things that Steven mentioned, that she's kind of a murderer, and is that at this point she still sees herself as a just ruler. Like, I'm not a butcher. Like, I want to lead these people. I want to walk on water. I want to, she still, her self-image of herself is not as a tyrant. It's as a liberator.
Right.
And so I think that maybe makes a lot of her decisions, is that she does have a council full of warriors, and like she sees that like violence is how you get things done, but she doesn't see the violence as a consequence. She sees it as a means to being this like great liberator of man. Tyler?
Yeah, she's probably kind of like unfortunately gotten herself surrounded more with yes men in a sense, or like everything she's doing is like for a good reason. Like liberating people out of slavery is a good reason there, but unfortunately, the people around her are just constantly reinforcing the facts of the mistakes that she's making. Nobody is, like we've been talking about here, nobody is an economically minded advisor around her, really. It's just a bunch of military people. So everyone sees slaughtering all these people as a good thing, which just reinforces her. Because I think it comes up maybe more in next episode of like her constant rebuttal to somebody is, I should kill you now. Well, should I kill you now? So I mean, like when you constantly keep getting told of like, hey, the military way you're doing this is the right way. Of course, that's going to warp your views and be like, okay, yeah, I will use force every time as my answer.
And then one quick note on this is, before we move on past this conversation, we should put a pin in it, because we're going to return to this exact conversation about advisors, who's advising, and how they're advising within the first 10 minutes of the next episode. So put a pin in this, because we are coming right back to it.
I had one more thing on this episode, unless somebody else is willing to say something. I don't know if we were. Sorry, it seemed like you were about to switch to the next episode.
No, we've got a ways to go yet, Nick. Settle down.
Never mind.
Was that all your points then, Steven?
Yes.
Okay, Amanda, what do you got?
Another touching little conversation between Cersei and Tommen back down in King's Landing. I just thought especially interesting that Cersei, she was comforting Tommen, and she told him at one point she couldn't do anything to save her father, her son, her husband. These were all events beyond her control, and there's just sometimes nothing you can do. At least one of those specific events was definitely in her control. But the other ones, again, like, I want to ask you guys, like, do you honestly think Cersei believes that, or do you think she does not have any sense of the events that add up to one another to end to these kinds of things? You think, Mick?
Point of clarification: that she believes what, per se?
Well, it's up to you. Does she honestly believe that she couldn't do anything to help these people? Does she honestly think these events are beyond her control? She seems to act like, for example, Tyrion. He was such an evil person, but she did not care about anything that she did to him.
Correct.
Result of that, there was cause, and then she was just shocked. All of a sudden, there's an effect. Where did this come from?
I liken Cersei, at what we've seen so far in these episodes, to that meme where the person shoves a stick in their spokes of their bicycle and they flip on their face, and then she screams, Tyrion! Because, yeah, I think absolutely she sees herself as the constant victim, and she sees Tyrion as a spiteful person. She sees her father as the person who ordered her at the small council table, you will marry Loras, and you will be my brooded mare and get the job done because I told you to because you're my daughter. And I think even in some of her most recent interactions with Jaime, like he took her forcibly for all intentions, at Joffrey's funeral. And he's been different since he's been back. She was scorned by him because he left. Truth is, he was captured during battle. And, like all these things are just woe is me kind of stuff. But I don't know. I mean, bad stuff has happened to her, yes. But I think that I don't think she sees the causation to it. I don't think she sees that if she is less spiteful and more kinder to her others in her circle, those who will want to do nice things to her. Like I think Jaime would bend over backwards for her. I think that her father, he cared about his lineage, and so she did have a place in his future. But now that's gone away. I think that she sees the world as out to get her. To a degree, it is, but rather than turn after 5 seasons so far, it turns into something more where she's just going to keep banging on that horse and say I'm just going to keep being mean to the world and see if that changes my tune, which so far it seems to have not. I think that she gets these brief moments of reprieve where she's happy, and she just instead, rather than be grateful and shut up about it, she like jams it down everybody else's face, is like, haha, I'm winning now, and just sits and sips her wine, and it usually turns around and bites her.
I was gonna say that I think Amanda's question was whether or not she was responsible for one of those. I assume it was her husband's death, because there was that like very, very potent wine. But maybe it wasn't her intent to kill him. Maybe it was her intent just to like seriously maim him.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Right. I totally forgot that was uttered too. That was in the scene, wasn't it?
What, Nick, was in the scene?
I'll let them go. Then unless they bring it up.
Okay, Tyler, what do you got?
That was random, Nick. There, but I think
Always random, Nick.
I think it's something I've constantly kind of talked about on the podcast when it relates to Cersei. Of she doesn't see beyond her eventual outcome. She doesn't see step 3, 4, 5, and 6 of her actions there. She just constantly sees, okay, as we'll talk about here shortly, I'm sure this is probably one of the points coming up, but as she sets a certain group in action, they do what she hopes they will eventually do. She doesn't see what's coming afterwards, though. She doesn't have enough foresight to see what could come afterwards.
Blinded by it.
Steven.
And that, in that effect, she'd be a horrible chess player, right? She's seeing 1 move ahead, not 4 moves ahead like she needs to. And I think I'd go back to, and we've said this before, it's what her dad said about her. You think you're smarter than you are. And it's entirely true. She thinks she is just the cleverest person in the house, and maybe that's due to lack of intelligence around her, although you'd think with her dad being there that she'd be humbled a little bit. But maybe she's always been the smartest person around, but she is the giant among midgets, so in intelligence.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Yeah. Until they come into the land of the two-eyed, right?
I did find it funny that she just kept on telling Tommen, these events are beyond our control. About that. Literally, you're like queen. You literally have like the most power to affect a lot of events. But there was also a little touching point at the end there when she tells Tommen, I would do anything for you. Anything to keep you from harm. Like she puts that qualifier on there. It's not necessarily I will do anything to make you happy, blah, blah, blah. It was I will do anything to keep you from harm. This is my plan.
Interesting. I had a line, my little weird side tangent there. Isn't there a part where in a previous episode she had made a comment at one point about she had put too much wine? Because Gary, you had commented that in Robert's glass, and that's why he actually passed. during his
No,
hunt?
I think it was more of like she kind of told Lancel to continue to feed him wine there, basically, to make his senses dull and aim and stuff like that slower.
That's
So
okay. That's what I was thinking of. So that's what I thought you were alluding to, Amanda, when you mentioned like one of those were outside your controls. That she had actually put that in motion that he would have
Oh
passed.
yeah, she did. Yeah, she was sitting there telling Tommen she couldn't do anything to save my husband. Oh no, my poor husband. You literally directly caused that one to happen.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, technically you're right. You couldn't have done anything to save him afterwards, but you definitely caused it.
Do you, speaking of that, and I think it maybe rolls into the next episode, where she does really want to keep her son from harm. Do you think some percentage of her going to try to get the new queen released is because she sees what kind of emotional turmoil it caused her son, or it's purely a facade? Nick?
I think that's all facade. I have a comment about that part of that interaction, but yeah, I think that she's doing it to show face that she did go in. I made quote unquote the attempt. But I think at one point in that conversation she says too, like, well, at least she's being treated justifiably, like or just justified or whatever in how she's being treated. Like her conditions are good. Because it's a facade on the basis that the second she sees Marjorie, all she does is sit there and smirk. Tyler.
100%, you said it there correctly, Nick. She's doing it for the appearance sake of going in there, and what happens between her and Marjorie is totally just her going, "Ha ha, you're in here because of me. Sucks to be you."
I'm
I don't
so
know. I
smart.
thought that at some point she doesn't like Marjorie, but I assume that she doesn't really like to see her son that sad, unless our long game is that Marjorie dies and then she gets some other pawn that she can install as the queen apparent.
I mean, yeah, she totally like that's kind of the underlying thing too. Is she really truly cares about her children? That's been mentioned. I think even Tyrion mentioned it one time before here too. The one thing in the world she really cares about is her children. So yes, she does not like seeing Tommen mad or upset or sad or anything like that. She feels heartbroken about that. But she doesn't like Marjorie whatsoever because she knows what Marjorie is basically doing to Tommen there. Steven.
I'll disagree with you on that. I don't think she cares a whiff what Tolman thinks. I think that she cares that he's alive, that he's safe, and that she thinks she's doing best. She is that mom on the playground who doesn't care about the real feelings of their kid as long as they feel like they are in charge of their kid, to my how I'd say it. And I we will see this later, later on, but I right? I think that she can watch her kids endure a lot, and as long as she thinks it's good for them, it's entirely fine. Couldn't care less. Yeah, his word. And I think, how do I say this? I think Gary is the opposite of wrong. Because I can't say that he's right. In that I think her
Twice
plan
in an
is to.
episode.
Yeah, no, I can't say it. I didn't say that. So I think she's looking to get rid of Marjorie, and I think that this is one way for her to get rid of Marjorie and then install a more pliable wife.
Pliable. I don't think I agree. I think that she doesn't see Tommen as his own person, let alone as the king. I think she sees Tommen as hers. He's mine. I have to protect him. He's my little babe. He's that. Well, Tommen wants it. I don't care. He's mine. He doesn't know what he wants. Yada yada.
Even in the book right now, reading it, she sits there and says things like, "Oh, she would make this move of like, well, Tobin might need that later on, so we'll make sure we get that for him." Not once does she ever like consider his feelings. In fact, when he gets upset about it, like again, this is the book, not the movie. She has a whipping boy brought in, so that she whips the boy and not because you can't whip the king.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she cares about Toman. I don't think it occurs to her to worry about his happiness. She's kind of treating him like her dad treated her.
Cares about Tommen, not for Tommen. How can we say that?
Yeah.
She cares for his life and that what his legacy and what he's going to need down in the future. She does not seem to worry about his day-to-day happiness.
You mentioned Tywin's actions is all she's grown up with, so that's the cycle perpetuates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, that's a good point.
Nice point.
All right, Amanda, did you have anything else?
I have several other points, but we can see if anyone else has other points. I took
All right.
many notes.
Gary, your turn, buddy.
I have no notes on this episode or
Oh,
questions.
Jesus.
Oh,
What, Gary?
Episode. The next
Holy
episode
cow.
at least had some interesting things going on. So I will allow Amanda a few more questions because she took notes to have inspirational conversations, and I wasn't even able to get any dick jokes out of this episode.
Gary, I thought you'd be so proud of me, and then you didn't do any notes.
I tried to take notes, but literally I just sat there and I was like, nothing is really like this episode seems like a filler episode to get you from where we were to where we're going.
I could see that.
In I was gonna say the hero of the revolution, just because he's not mentioned, but he actually was in this episode. So
He was.
wasn't this
Where was he in
episode?
oh yeah, Noah's in the next episode where he
Nope.
talks to his father.
No,
He's
it's
in
this
this episode. He doesn't talk
Just
to
a
his
quick
father this
one.
episode, but
Talks to Sansa, doesn't he?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an interesting conversation. I
And he
forgot
doesn't
about
take
that,
notes
but, like,
about it either.
best
Yeah, he just
character in
makes
the
a
show.
note.
But yes, that he like for some reason brought her out on the ramparts and like
Well,
sort of counseled her.
there wasn't a
like-
reason behind it. So to set it up,
There was a reason behind it.
Sansa tried to have Theon light a candle up in the tower there to signal that she needed to be rescued there. Theon, instead of doing that, went and talked to Ramsay. Ramsay found the woman, flayed her alive, and then came out and said, "Hey, Sansa, look."
So you're saying that the nice walk along the ramparts is really just leading up to the punchline he wanted to...
You want to talk about someone who's all the facade, Ramsay.
Yeah,
I think he's dropped
he
the
even,
facade. His father knows exactly who he is. His wife knows exactly who he is. His stepmother maybe is a little blind to what he truly is. But that's about it. Reek knows exactly who he is.
Reek knows exactly who he is. I would disagree with you, Gary. I think that in the few interactions we've seen now from Rhys and Ramsay Bolton, I don't even think his dad knows the deprivations that he has with him. In a couple of the interactions they've had at the table, when like Reek's first appearance, where he first meets Sansa, we kind of talked about in this group too, like how Rhys just kind of sits there awkwardly, wondering what Ramsay's gonna say, and Ramsay kind of fumbles through. There, we're all friends again. He apologized. Like I don't think even Rhys knows. Rhys knows how deprived and depraved his son is.
It's Roose Bolton. Not
Roose,
Reese.
sorry, not Rhys. Roose Bolton.
who's clearly
Reese.
not
Knows how crazy his
inspiring
son
the
is.
proper terror into Nick.
So yeah, I think absolutely Reek is the only person who knows how truly deranged the hero of the revolution is.
I tend to agree with that.
Does anyone else think his dad actually has a good grasp on what a psychopath he is? Like, really?
No.
I don't think so.
He grew up trying to live up to his family, his adopted reputation of being like, we're the family who flays people, and that's who he strived to be. Like, that was his only goal, was like, he didn't have the surname, but I'm at least going to live up to this family honor. And I think his father probably noticed that. And like, I don't even know how much his father was like super into the flaying, but he doesn't scoff at it
He
as
doesn't-
much.
Feel free, book people, to interject and contradict me here, but every time that there's someone gets flayed, Roose says, why did you torture him? He was not yours to torment. when we first heard that he has at the time Theon Greyjoy. And even when he says, "Go take the what is it? It's not the Dread Fort because they have the Dread Fort, but the other little
Winterfell.
fort that they what?
You mean Moat
No, the
Cailin?
other little fort that they sneak into.
Yeah, Moat Cailin.
Moat Cailin, thank you." He says, "If you can retake Moat Cailin for me, I'll reconsider your position." And he does, but we never hear Roose like, "Oh, good, you flayed them all, awesome." Every time we see Ramsay interact with somebody he distastes, he mutilates them. That may be what their use the word honor. I will disagree with you tastefully. May be of what their right is, but every time we see Roose talk about it or interject with it, it always seems to be condemnation in regards to it. He was not yours to torment. That was not your decision to make. You speak on my behalf and you shouldn't have. And I think, again, for facade, the buzzword of this evening, the facade is that he's given him this title of "You're no longer a bastard" at my behest because I need a legitimate heir. And then, oh, lo and behold, now I'm getting one maybe. And so it seems like maybe I did that in haste and I didn't need to. Like there's a lot there that I think he is propping up Ramsay to be this person on a representative or House Bolton, that he is his son. I don't think Roose believes that he is his legitimate son or wants him to be because he doesn't know how dangerous a person he actually is. My 2 cents. Steven.
I think I personally think that you're right about Roose. I think he's a lot more tactful than the flayed man would, I guess, give off. And I think that a lot of his, if you want to say, flaying comes in the diplomacy realm and in the governance realm, where he's willing just to absolutely cut someone to shreds by backstabbing them if he sees it's in his own interest. But they're always logical steps.
Rob, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that both of them, he's in the vein of the ends justify the means. So he was willing to betray House Stark because he saw that there was he saw he was in a losing war and he saw an opportunity to increase his status. So when his son got him the Dread Fort, obviously his expectation was that there was going to be via battle, there was going to be some blood, like some people are going to die. He managed to get into the Dread Fort with no fighting, got them to surrender, and then killed them all anyway. So the end expectation was the same. The way he got there was a little different than I think his father preferred. But he killed all the Islanders.
I think.
Why the hell do you care about them? They're not my people. They're not the Northerners.
I think the difference there.
Like, is he gonna leave them alive? No, he's gonna fucking kill them. Like, fuck them, they're dead. Like, sorry, censors.
I think the difference there, though, is that to Roose Bolton, yes, the ends probably do justify the means. It's bloody getting your hands dirty, but now you've got stature. Whereas we're saying Ramsay lives in that means realm. Where, yeah, I get Moat Cailin back from my family, but like he enjoys the torture. He that's how he gets his jollies, I think. So it's the difference there. It's Ramsay's not looking for the long. Ramsay never wanted to rule Winterfell. He never wanted a wife. Otherwise, he would have married Miranda. I think that he just wants to kind of be left alone to squash the ants with his magnifying glass. And again, playing the long game, Roose is trying to prop him up as "you will be my son, you will carry on my name and live in my house." And now he sees, oh, hey, I've got power, but I still have this darker tendency. That's why he still sees Miranda on the side.
You feel like in any situation, anyone from Moat Cailin was going to live?
No. But
just
how do they surrender? Do they give up? What do they do? I mean, even having, you could have said, shown all the bodies on the ground and they were slaughtered, and that's fine. The fact that they were all flayed is the level of depravity that I'm trying to talk about, not to speak for everyone else.
understand. I
you
still
can take
think
Kaelin and kill everybody without it being.
I still think his father understands to some level. Yes, he keeps it a little more bottled up. But anyway, we can move forward. I guess we'll just agree to disagree, Nick, and or just agree that you're wrong. But we can move forward.
Do you have anything else, Amanda?
Marcella and Jamie have a touching little conversation. It was very sweet and it was very short, and then that was the end of it. Did I skip ahead too far?
I was going to say, touching, I don't know
a very short conversation, but it was like Marcella walked in and it was like, why are you here? And it's just like, your mother was worried. Well, I'm happy. I'm going to be married here. And like, tra-la-la. And I want to stay in this city forever. This city of Dorne forever.
City of Dorne
city of
forever.
Correct me
they
if I'm
move
wrong.
on to that.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, no, you're right. I skipped ahead a little bit. There was, fight. There was some disagreement, and there was a conversation that had to be had to explain that she was safe and everything's well, and we're all gonna be friends. And then they're on a boat, and then Marcelo was.
Nope, you're ahead. You're moving ahead.
No, you're ahead.
Way too ahead.
I was
sorry.
You're right.
Okay.
I was gonna say in that interaction with Marcella and Jamie when there is a small fight when they realize Jamie and the past episode where Jamie and Bronn are captured and they're separated. We see Jamie is in much nicer accommodations than Bronn is with the Sand Sisters. And when Marcella comes into the room, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were very strong overtones of, I love King Joffrey and I'm going to have his babies and we're going to live happily ever after in that conversation. Wasn't there?
Nick, you're just fucking up names left and right today.
Prince Duran. It was.
I know. That's who.
He's saying callback.
Duran. Okay. Tristan is the one who she's marrying, but that strong overtone was very heavily referenced when Sansa was saying that about King Joffrey. Was what I was saying. I'm not messing up names. You just got to get on my level to catch the metaphors I'm throwing out.
Well, I mean,
it's a good point. I think you're right.
We all can't get down to your level, Nick. We live up in the clouds where the air is crisp.
No, I think you've got a good point. I just think that Tristan is a much different version of not Joffrey.
Correct.
Thank goodness.
I wanted to, speaking on our friend Bronn in the cells there with the sand snakes.
Yeah.
How about the long kiss goodbye? That seems totally random to come up out of just nowhere. I mean, it's definitely not going to come up again, right?
No. I mean, this was a one-off. It's weird that they, the creators threw this in at just a random point, probably just to show the boobs of this girl. But hey, whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
Side tangent. I want to hear more of the songs of Westeros because I just hearing Bronn just singing away in a jail cell was pretty cool.
Right? I thought so too. I really do have to throw out, I honestly like the Bronn of the movies better. He's got a character to him that's just funny and lighthearted, and it's kind of a nice break sometimes.
Right.
I thought that it was a good explanation of that poison, and I don't know if it was some random character building for those 3 daughters that I'd give you $5 if you could name all of their names at this point, because they're a
blob. Nymeria, and shoot, what's the last one?
That's right. One is Nymeria because that's
$5. I was like, I have no idea what these people
famous princess of the city of Dorne.
Yeah, can't remember the last one. There's Obara. There's Nym. I can't remember the third one. The one that says she's the most beautiful woman.
Honestly, 2 of the 3 sisters didn't even need to be in that conversation. Personal opinion. But they got paid to act in that episode, so everybody's happy.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Goodness sakes.
Anything else, Amanda?
My last thing was about Cersei going to go visit Marjorie, and then the fact that the end of that visit didn't quite work out the way Cersei was thinking.
Yeah, she overextended her hand of going ha ha to Marjorie, and it wound up biting her.
I'm telling you, just sticking that stick into the spokes and then flipping over her tricycle.
Damn you, Marjorie!
Exactly.
So there's two things I wanted to call out here too before. Well, take that back. There's three things I wanted to quickly call out before we end the discussion on this episode, unless Nick had another point afterwards.
I had
Number
one.
one was Melisandre floating the idea of there's somebody else with
Right.
the power of King's blood in Stannis'
Oh.
camp.
Oh.
Definitely not going to go
Avoided that.
anywhere.
Hey, thankfully Stannis said no to that. He squashed that idea. Move on.
Never
It's
gonna
true.
happen.
Won't happen.
It won't happen.
He's a good dad.
He's a great dad.
And then the last one there was, I mean, we can briefly touch on too. Jorah's gift to Daenerys is Tyrion, which that more unfolds there in the next episode, which we'll talk about
Right.
a lot more. But was Lady Olenna meeting both with the High Sparrow, which was a great interaction, and also then too meeting with Baelish as well, where she learns, as we all find out, the name of the person that kind of float to the High Sparrow to talk to, which ultimately gets Cersei in trouble.
Yes.
The one thing I wanted to ask though, kind of about, it was the conversation between Olenna and the High Sparrow there. It seems like they kind of put the High Sparrow as like you can't quite tell his motives. Like Olenna's trying to figure this all out, talking to him. Like, is this guy really for real? Is he really this faithful person, or is he truly like up to some other scheme or something like that? So I was just gonna kind of float it out to the group here of like, do we think he's really a true, high, just, holy person there trying to do right by the laws of gods and men, or is there some other alternative thing deep buried for his plot there, Gary?
I think that he truly is that. I feel like the downside of as it's displayed is it makes him sometimes look a little one-dimensional, but I think he is a three-dimensional character of like being that devout. But I also think Lady Olenna is unprepared for somebody being that devout and not having like an exception to the rule or their own vice or like something that allows her to humanize them and sort of get her kind of get her claws in or sort of massage out that like I understand that my grandson is a likes the boys. I understand that my granddaughter lied to protect her brother, but like that's what humans do. Like that's a human defense, and it does no effect on him. So I think that's really what we learned is that like he is really that devout, and like she's just trying to do what she's done for years, which is just figure out how to bargain with people, and he's not someone to be bargained with. Nick?
I agree with what you're saying, Gary. I disagree with the comment Tyler had about is he high and just. I think that he is very pious, a very devout person. I don't think he's just. That's the difficult side with religion. In certainly in this high fantasy realm, what is just is not somebody else's version of just. Justice is always in the eye of the beholder, or depends on your side and where you wind up with it. The conversation quote that I caught from that is that Lady Olenna says equality is justice, or equality should be justice, something to that effect. And it is, true justice would be what's fair. If you wrong me, I get you, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth type thing. But it's not that. Because in this sense, it is what the septum and the septum's faith have deemed as irresponsible behavior, and that's what I think they said buggery, referencing what's going on, as to why he's being held accountable. But yeah, just like you said, Gary, Lady Olenna, that's not something that's gonna rub her the wrong way. She'd rather have her grandkids back, and so she disagrees with that conversation. And the septum, the sparrow, even says that back to her. Like, this must be difficult for you to try and have a conversation with somebody that has nothing that you can use against them. Because she's just like, begging for the What's the thing you're gonna be able to bend on that you can give to me that I can get my kids back? And I think he has a line about the power of the few is that they're so strong, because she makes a line about we'll withhold our grain from you and we'll see what happens then and how strong you are. And he says back to her something to the effect of, who harvests that grain that's made high garden so strong? The power of the many is dangerous once they realize that they don't need the few, or something to that effect. And he's absolutely right. That's the big danger that so many people don't realize, is that these people who are so powerful and have all the means to do, move heaven under earth, it's the common folks who are dangerous, because they don't have much to lose, but there's so many more of the many than there are of the few.
But I also think that she's being transparent, a little more transparent than she normally is.
Oh, absolutely.
She usually is like, oh yeah, like I'm doing this, but really it's just like, I really want you to release my grandchildren. Like,
she's on the ropes.
I'll do anything you can. Like, what is it gonna take? But like, yeah, she's on the ropes, and kind of, as you said, she's not prepared for that. She's unfamiliar with like just having to like ask directly, like, what do we need to do? Because they are nice people. They don't deserve this.
2 episodes ago, she was the grandmother to the queen. Now she's the grandmother to a confessed liar who's betrayed the faith of the seven. Totally different realm for her to be in.
Was that, I guess, for book people, was that how it laid down in the book? Because it seemed like it was kind of gotcha. Like in the TV show, like they had it kind of set up to kind of force Marjorie to lie. Like they kind of set her up.
That's true. For somebody who is high and just and pious and devout, he really didn't bring out the accusations first. He kind of brought out, Littlefinger's guy, and said several things and set it up so that they were caught in a lie. That's kind of sneaky. It's kind of, baiting.
I actually just read this part in the books, and it was completely different, which I was fascinated by because I didn't really remember it. It was so far in the books. In the books, Cersei actually went to the High Sparrow first to be like, because he's refusing to bless Tommen, so she needs that done. So she's talking to him, and she's finding out. Also, she wants them to forgive their loan and blah blah blah. So she ends up walking away by saying, "How about you can take care with your little faith militant, and I get my blessing, and you forgive this much of our loan or whatever and gold." And then she decides to use him to take care of Marjorie. She feeds him information that Marjorie is not a maiden.
Interesting.
And so they arrest her and her little cousins, and I think she has one of the Kingsguard confessed to having bed her as well. Yeah, like she did all this, and then of course then the High Sparrow like tortured that guy, and then they found out more. So Marjorie's been arrested by them. All her little cousins have been arrested by them. Loras is not even arrested by them in the book. He's completely off somewhere else.
Yeah, I think he's recovering from his wounds in Highgarden there.
Yeah. He's expected to pass away after getting back Dragonstone.
Yep.
Interesting. That the Kingsguard thing, is it more so implied that they're just tricking this Kingsguard into confessing to make her seem more guilty, or that she did actually bed him?
So correct me if I'm wrong here, Amanda. This is what I remember of, like, Cersei set up this plot basically in the books there to try and get this Kingsguard to kind of get close with Marjorie and try to eventually bed her, basically, to then take to the High Sparrow of like, hey, she's not a maiden anymore. She's not fit to marry the king here. And it's also to then, because he doesn't end up actually doing it, but I think they just throw the pipe bomb out there basically like, yeah, she did it anyways or whatever, to just arrest her. And then also through the torture then of this Kingsguard guy, it's revealed that Cersei had been the one sleeping basically with everybody here in the castle. And
including him.
Including this Kingsguard guy. And she's eventually taken into custody when she goes. Is it like kind of the same situation though? She goes to the Sept to kind of say ha ha to Marjorie and ends up getting captured there.
Yep. just read that part. So she went there and she's talking to the High Sparrow, and then she's finding out what the guy confessed, and she was like, "Oh no, this is bad." She feels unease, and then she's arrested.
Interesting. Because yeah, I think that Marjorie is absolutely conniving, double crossing secret motives, but unfaithful, no. And so to hear that, I was like, oh, that paints a totally different picture of her in my mind from the books. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
No, Tyler's completely right. That's exactly what happened. And in the book, she's also again like 14 right now. Like she does present a very innocent little picture. She's not the same as the show. So this will be interesting.
Stay classy.
Stay classy. Did we have anything else then that we wanted to cover for this episode?
Good.
Nick, did we cover your one point you wanted to hold on to till the end?
Yeah, it was that one talking about this High Sparrow interaction with Cersei.
All right.
Busted. She got pranked.
Moving on then to episode 8, Hard Home, aka one of the best top 3 episodes of the entire show. Yeah, you guys can all complain.
All right. I mean, it's a bold statement.
Tyrion advises Daenerys. Sansa forces Theon to tell her a secret. Cersei remains stubborn. Arya meets her first target. Jon and Tormund meet with the Wildling elders. So I guess it kind of basically opens up there with basically over in Meereen with Tyrion, Daenerys, and Jorah and everything of basically Tyrion introducing himself to Daenerys essentially, and then kind of being asked, if you're going to advise me, what do I do with him, referencing Jorah there. And I kind of wanted to ask this question here because book Tyrion and show Tyrion have vastly verged basically at this point, because the books have ended with, I think, does Tyrion make it there to... No, he's outside the city of Meereen at this point in time in the books there. He hasn't fully met Daenerys yet.
So
Yeah,
I guess
I haven't actually gotten there yet, but yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So the question that kind of seemed weird to me of like Tyrion kind of coming out saying he wants revenge against his own family, essentially, it seems like, because he says he's the greatest Lannister killer of our time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of how anyone else takes it there? Like, does Tyrion desire revenge against his family, or is it really just Cersei? Like, family equals Cersei in this equation. Nick?
No, I think that he was upset at what his father did. He didn't even know his mother. He is not upset with the Lannisters. I think he said it best in like his the first episode of this season where he said, "I'm done with Westeros, and Westeros is done with me."
I would say that he only went on this adventure because of Baldy, and Baldy made him believe that he still had something to do in this world, like. And he was like, well, I got nothing else better to do. I can drink along the way. Let's go.
The word you're looking for, Gary, is Varys.
Varys, yes. Varys got him out, and Varys gave him the next thing, and he's like, that sounds like fun. Like, could I be a counselor? Like, use this massive knowledge and see the world and whore and drink my way? Keep going. Let's party. Like, that's his motivation at this point. Amanda?
I'm honestly not sure, because I'm reading this part in the books where he's just left his father after he killed his father and he's moving on, and I feel like he's still in grief. He's still processing everything that has changed. He's lost everything to him. He's literally not even on the same continent anymore, because I keep thinking that Jaime is still like someone important to him, and yet in the books even he's like, I want to kill all of them. I want to kill everyone. I'm done with my family. Will he feel that way once his grief has had a chance to like work its way through and process? Who knows?
So I'll go out and say I don't think that any sort of retribution is Tyrion's modus vivendi right now. He is being driven, I think, by what Amanda said, in that's a lack of anything. He's looking for a purpose. He's lost his purpose completely. He I think he does at this point still want to have a little bit of power because he's a smart dude, and I think he also knows what he's good at, and so he's able to latch on, or he is able to see Daenerys at this point, and after what he's heard of her, apparently she's a good person, maybe, according to other people, not according to me, by the way. But there's a place, there's a perspective place for him. There's a purpose for him there, maybe, and so that's why I see him going over.
I was gonna say, I guess you were saying in the books that Tyrion's like kind of fuck all Lannisters, even my brother. Do you think there's some percentage of like after he heard his father just like who he thought was like family first, like for family honors the best, as soon as he like crushed that piece of like belief system that like his connection with his brother wasn't as strong because he's like, well, like my dad was an asshole, like my brother was nice to me sorta, but whatever, like I just gotta look out for me at this point. So I don't know. Nick, what do you got?
No, I don't think. Well, not like no. I disagree with you. I don't think that he's really even thinking about it. TV series, Tyrion, is thinking about his brother or his sister or anything like that. I don't think that that's something he's focused on. He's just trying to understand his new situations. Because yeah, for the last several episodes, he's been trying to make his way to Daenerys. Now that he's reached her, he's just trying to understand who she is. I think he's more eyes front, trying to figure out what's going on with her. I originally raised my finger because I was talking about catching up how we had talked just previously in the last episode, how Daenerys is kind of leaning towards that martial law, militaristic view of what should I do with everybody. And yeah, she says several times, like in that first interaction, what should I do with Jorah? I feel like I should kill him, and Tyrion, we're saying that she needs someone to sway her out of that. And he said, I think Tyrion has a very pointed line about a leader who kills those devoted to them does not inspire devotion in others. And even in the next interaction where they're sipping wine at her table, he's asking her, "What are you going to do with me? Should I, are you going to kill me?" And she's like, "I haven't decided yet." Like just throwing out the line about murdering him. And so I think that she is still very much leaning on force has got me thus far. Should I just be forceful again? And my Sith absolutes are yes, I'll murder you, or no, I won't for now. And so it's interesting to hear someone kind of match wits with her in Tyrion. Yeah, I mean, they bring up the Lannister name only talking about the wheel, which is another point that I had. But he really doesn't talk much about the Lannisters or his family feelings before that, other than just a little bit. So I don't think that he's really focused on them that much. Amanda?
I loved the conversation between Tyrion and Dan, and I think you're honestly right. You guys have a good point that like she keeps asking, "Should I kill you? Should I kill you?" Like this is the only answer she seems to have now. She needs to realize there are other options outside of that. But it was a fascinating conversation. Like Tyrion at one point says, "We're two terrible children of two terrible parents," and she goes, "I'm terrible," and he says, "I've heard stories."
Right. Call a spade a spade.
Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me like, and she doesn't defend that at all. But it was just a fascinating conversation, all wrapped up in blood and ties. Like his brother killed her father. His traveling companion was Jorah, the man who sent assassins, but also saved her. Like every time they talk or anything gets brought up they have in common, it just smudges blood prints between them. Like it's fascinating, all wrapped up in that. Harry?
Was gonna say, as we were talking about it, you were talking about the interaction between Daenerys and Tyrion, and it was that like even in the first interaction, like Tyrion understands the kind of poker game he's playing, which is like, I haven't decided yet if you're worth my knowledge.
Right.
Like not like, oh my god, I will be so helpful to you. He's like, whatever, like I am so much better than you already. I would maybe honor you with my knowledge if you deserve it. Like that is such a crazy poker move. Like he is easily like he's hanging out with somebody she's already claimed like that she wants to kill, and instead of being like, dude, I'm not with this guy, like it's just like, well, I'm the gift. Like, read 'em and weep, baby.
And I go back to exactly. I said we're going to put a pin in it. We're going to come back to here and talking about the different advisors. The difference in how he talks to her, just like what Gary said, just like what Nick said, just like what Amanda said. The difference in how he talks to her is absolutely stunning. It is not a martial advice. It's not any sort. It's clever diplomatic advice. Hey, is this a good idea logically from a governing standpoint? And let's go from there. And not afraid to call out and basically say, you're wrong. I'm not going to be this yes man. I'm not just going to go, oh, well, my queen says so, so I'll do it. No, actually bringing a second perspective to the table, one that might clash with Daenerys, and probably one that needs to clash with Daenerys if she wants to be successful.
I think that they need each other in this interaction. I'm going to do a quick side tangent, but I think that they need each other. We keep referencing Jorah Mormont, a little bit of Varys, but Jorah Mormont, and I keep thinking in my head that time when Tyrion's teasing him and he says, "A punch in the face and a long sullen quietness, the Mormont way." And then like he gets beat up everywhere he goes. Varys is kind of crapping down on him because that's just who Varys, his personality is. But Dany has serious power to decide if Tyrion lives or dies. That's something that in his previous interactions on this side of the world, Tyrion hasn't interacted with yet. So he needs someone to buckle his wits against as well, because she's got the force, not the wisdomness to contradict him, but he needs someone to direct his efforts towards that she has the power to influence. And then, just like we're talking about, she needs that counseling as well. Someone who's, willing to say, I'm not going to be a yes man, just like Steven said, and someone who's going to contradict them when they feel it's the right time. That's the kind of running mate, that's the kind of hand of the king or queen you want. Someone who's going to tell you when a bad decision is a bad decision. And, come to a better decision by understanding all aspects of something, not just what you hear is the forceful way to do it.
Do we think, though, that possibly Tyrion's willingness to speak the way he does, just because at this point in time he's kind of just given up on essentially life there for the most part? If he dies, he dies. Oh well. Thoughts, Steven?
I think that's a fair point. I really do. I think that makes him more useful as an advisor, going back to what we were saying. But I also completely agree with you that I killed his father. He got shipped to Pentos in a crate. He was a slave, then bought his way.
Have to shit through a hole.
Oh, that's what you were saying.
I knew it was done.
I did not, but he got bought as a slave. I mean, he's at the bottom of the barrel right now. There is nowhere further down to go. What's Daenerys gonna do? Burn him alive? Oh no! I mean, it's not the worst, honestly, that he could go through at this point in time. And I agree with you. I do.
I think that he's accepted that he may die early at this point. I still don't think he wants to die. Keep in mind, his perfect way to die is when he's 80 with a young woman. So I don't think he's ready to go quite yet. But yeah, he's much more brazen about how he's talking to people. He just doesn't know Daenerys. I mean, just like we said, that she's not a butcher. You're either butcher or meat. And we've mentioned the horrible things in the last couple minutes here that she's done in these previous cities to these masters. Maybe he would talk differently to her if he knew some of these things, because he's heard stories. But hearing stories and seeing those atrocities, those war crimes done in person are always two different things. So I don't know. I feel like he's towards the end of his rope, but I think that he still has hope enough that he's willing to sit down, drink wine, break bread, and try and discuss the future with her. I think if he's given up, he'd probably be more like he was with Varys, where he just vomited on the floor and drank more heavily.
All right. So I'll turn it over to Amanda this time to start us off. Do you have points you'd like to discuss about the episode?
One of mine was just happening. I loved that conversation between Daenerys and Tyrion.
Was quite good.
My other ones are about Hardhome, so I'll wait until we decided to broach that.
Steven, what do you got?
So I'll be honest, I have some points about Hardhome as well. And then my other point, the major point that I did want to do was the adding a council member to Daenerys, and one that is not a marshal, not a military man, a diplomatic man, a man of letters, if you want to say, and how different that is for her. And we'll see if that changes how she rules, because it is so vastly different. I think the closest you can come to what she has in Tyrion is Melisandre, like we were saying, and I don't think Melisandre is anywhere near that type of caliber of a domestic advisor. She's much more of a functionary. She's not an advisor.
All right. Nick.
I just moved my hands really quick in front of my face. Melisandre, magic, poof, smoke bomb. Yeah, much less than Tyrion actually is. I had a question. Obviously, I also had some things about Hardhome at the end of this episode. But I had a quick interaction with, now that Cersei is getting her just desserts and is also in a black cell at the Red Keep area there, or at the Sept. She has this great line where she's being held, confess, says, I think her name is Septa Unella.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Septa Unella comes in, and she's this very tall, very skulking kind of Septa. And she's got water that she's offering for Cersei, but Cersei, being very proud, doesn't take it. And I have the line here. Cersei says, I'm just contemplating imagining hideous ways for you to die. And so I thought that was very dark, because she's asking her to confess and she'll give her water. So she's probably starving, just like Marjorie was. But then again, this is what we were just talking about, how the causation of not, realizing I should not go back to the Sept and gloat. Instead, she does, and it just goes south. And then when she says this to Septa Unella turns and pours it out on the ground, and the water falls onto the flagstones on the ground there in the cell. And then the Septa leaves. And as soon as she leaves, Cersei breaks down, runs over, and slurps up the water off the ground in the cell. And I noted that right then, that's when the Rains of Castamere plays in a very slow, somber tone. And it's just the sound. There's no words to it. But there's a line in the Rains of Castamere, and who are you that I should bow so low? As the queen, the queen mother is bowed low, slurping up water. And it's just this great mental image in my mind of how low and how far the mighty have fallen. So I just thought that was a really cool scene. I didn't really have a question on that. I just thought that was a neat little, the perfect way that, again, I can't never remember the composer's name, but he's got Ramin Djawadi or something like that.
Yeah.
Has, that's the perfect moment for the Rains of Castamere, because we've heard it before, with Tywin and how powerful his house is, and when the Lannisters win a war and how regal they are, and here now at this point how far Cersei has fallen at her own demise.
I will echo here too, though. The Reigns of Castamere is essentially like the theme for House Lannister throughout the show, so it's brought out for different high points of House Lannister there. So obviously, anything to do with the Lannister family, it's kind of brought in there, I think, to enhance the scene, like you're talking about there.
Yeah, because this isn't a high scene, right? This is a low scene, just the inverse of what you're expecting it to be. And then I guess I had one other point before my Hardhome comments, which was the one I had mentioned earlier that I jumped ahead, was Ollie, the young boy up in the Night's Watch, comes in to I think Sam is signing papers in the Lord Commander's office.
He's getting stitched up from Gilly there from the beating he took the previous episode.
And then he sends Gilly out, and it's just Sam talking to Ollie. And Sam's just innocent again, maybe naive, just like, what's wrong, Ollie? And Ollie has this great exchange to him where Sam says the Lord Commander's doing what he wants to do because he feels it's the right thing in the long run. And he said something like, yes, to see a wrong that looks right in the long run. And Ollie, the young boy, says to Sam, do you really believe that? And in the moment, I think it's written in such a way that scene seems to be that Sam is saying, we get maybe the long goal here of, just like we were saying, John's doing what he thinks is right in the long run, even though it doesn't seem that way right now. In that moment, though, I don't think that's how Ollie took it. Because Ollie clearly looks upset. He's even mentioned in that scene how, what the wildlings killed my family and they butchered my entire village. He's clearly upset about what John is doing. And hearing Sam say, doing the thing that seems wrong is right in the long run, to me, I think he's taking that to another metaphor. What do you think there? Do you think that he's misinterpreting Sam, or do you think he's just outright disagreeing with him?
I think he's agreeing with him, but he's agreeing with him on a different point. And I didn't actually catch that until you just said it right now. I think the logic holds. And we get back to this with Alistair Thorne, right? Alistair Thorne always does what he thinks is right, regardless of whether it seems wrong. And it seems wrong to us, but it seems right to him. This is the same sort of logic going on with Ollie. And I don't think, like you say, I don't think Sam means for it to go where Ollie thinks it's going.
Precisely. That kind of struck me in such a way, because after that scene, I don't know if it's meant to be that way or it's a nuanced tip from the director of the scene, but the character, the young boy Ollie, seems to really take that in, and he's thinking about it. He's not just like, yeah, I guess, on face value. Like, he's kind of contemplating, maybe that is his thought, that, maybe John does see something I don't, and that will be right in the long run, or this seems wrong, so I should do something about it in the long run. I don't know what he would do, but yeah, that's the thought. So, otherwise, my other comments are on Hardhome. Back to you,
Gary. What do you got?
I only made one note that was before Hardhome, and it was I want to break the wheel. As Steven's favorite character, Daenerys, like, as I mentioned earlier, like, she sees herself as the hero of her own story. Like, what at this point, without spoiling what we know she becomes, or what happens later, like, what do you think in her mind she sees as breaking the wheel? Like, do you think it means that she's going to, like, maybe try to, whoever the houses are that help her will be the wardens of the north, south, east, west, or Shotzi?
I think she kind of touches on it just a little bit with, like, her talk of, like, the common folk constantly being crushed under the air quotes wheel of all of these families rising and falling to power there. So in her mind, her breaking the wheel is basically putting more power in the common folk, liberating them from these lords that have basically ruled over them for generations without any real cause anymore. They've just been in place because that's the way that it was set up many eons ago when Aegon conquered Westeros and set in place families of power who helped him during the events there. Nick.
I think, yeah, along those lines. I don't think that there's like, I'm going to replace the heads of power. I think that she envisions herself sitting on the Iron Throne, and maybe a bit more of that picture of Yunkai or Astapor, where everybody's like, Misa, and lifting her up to glory. I think Tyrion or maybe somebody else has make a reference about, why do you want the Iron Throne? You've never been there, And he even like breaks down, maybe some people will back you, most won't because they don't know you. This is what we're talking about, is that she comes in and tries to assimilate a culture to what she envisions it is. She has no idea what it's actually like. So when she says break the wheel, I don't think she has a clue what the wheel currently is. And so when she says she wants to break the wheel, she means status quo changes. I don't think she has a backup plan of what to instill thereafter.
I think I'm sort of similar to Nick's point when I was thinking about it, was that the same, like, level of lack of political advisors she has in, like, ruling, like, where she's at, is the same level of understanding she has of ruling Westeros. Like, she's like, oh, well, I'll just break what exists. I'll abolish slavery and everything will be better. and I will be a great leader. She thinks that she can go over to Westeros and abolish these great houses and let the new better people rise to the top. The cream. What is that Randy Savage quote? The best cream always rises to the top.
Yes. To quote Randy,
anyway.
Macho Man Randy Savage in our Game of Thrones podcast.
Anyway, I think that her inability of understanding like the politics where in Marine is the same level of understanding I guess I'll agree with Nick that like she just says break the wheel, just break the status quo, but she doesn't understand how to do it or what that'll mean. Steven?
So I have a similar but slightly different take from both of you guys, and that is no, I'm not agreeing with you. I am not agreeing with you, Gary. But anyways, my take is that I agree she wants to break the wheel, and I think I agree with Tyler that she wants the power to be redistributed. Well, Tyler thinks that she wants it more to go to the common person. I think in her mind, she wants it to go to the right people. Right being a subjective term that she is able to determine. And yeah, it's for real. It's I think that because we've seen her overrule people before. We've seen her do what's probably against the common good before, just because she thinks it's right. And so she wants to repurpose that power to bring it to the right people. And the right people in her mind is a subjective judgment at that time that's not necessarily, I would say, foreseeable. So if she gets to the Westeros and she gets to that state of power, I think at that time she will decide what will fulfill her version of power the best. And if that is keeping the great houses and keeping everyone under a thumb, I think she'll do that. I think if it's uprooting them all and giving the sparrows all the power, she'll do that as well. All she wants to do is redistribute the power.
Honestly, when she said that she wanted to break the wheel, I rolled my eyes because I was like, okay, well, that was a cheap, easy way to say something. What does it mean? And I think you guys have some good points, but I think it comes down to she doesn't know what she's going to do. She doesn't make people, she hasn't shown any skills at getting people to get along. I think you're right. I think she's just status quo changes. She wants something to change, but all she's going to do is just say, I don't like this. She has no knowing of what to put in its place. She doesn't know how to make things happen. She just knows what she doesn't like, and that's it.
I was going to make a reference to another simile. I'm not forgetting names, but I'm making a reference similar to Robb Stark, right? It's a character in Dany who's never lost any battle she's gone into. So all she knows is I do what I want and I end up on top. And so when she says that, what are you going to do? I'm going to break the wheel. Ha ha. She doesn't know what that looks like, doesn't know what that's going to be. And worse, what does that look like when somebody with nothing but absolute power doesn't get what they want? That's the thing that's truly terrifying to me in that sentence.
All right. Gary, do you have anything else?
That was my points until Heart Home.
Okay.
So
the last.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Check you later, everyone. That's it. The last.
And now, right?
Quick quote.
Man, I wish that more had happened.
The last quick quote that I wanted to throw out there was just from Gary's favorite hero of the Revolution there, of saying he needs 20 good men to take care of that pain Stannis. Don't know what that means. Probably something totally good for Stannis, though. It's probably going to be like a birthday cake or something like that.
Yeah. Are we saying it might be otherwise? I'm not sure what you're talking about here. Am I missing something?
I guess we probably have to just keep watching to find out whether it's a cake, mutual destruction.
Well, like we talked about, Stannis is in a perfect position and well fortified spot, so I'm sure he'll be ready for whatever it is.
It's a song and dance routine. That's what it is.
Soft shoe, jazz step.
Jazz fingers. All right. So, as we've all been alluding to, the final portion of the episode, probably the best part of the entire episode here, is John arriving at the Wildling camp, aka Hardhome, with some members of the Night's Watch and Tormund to basically talk to them to try and convince them, hey, I've brought ships here with me. I want to take you guys south of the wall here because there's a larger threat coming. And he meets with Tormund and the elders to discuss it. Nick, you're already throwing up your finger. What do you want to talk about here?
A middle finger just for you. No, I'm not Gary. The very first thing they do is they land on the island or Hardhome's area there, and I had written out what I was thinking at the moment because they land and they're greeted by the Lord of Bones, who is a character who we met earlier, who was in Mance's camp north of the wall, and I wrote down in that moment I was just thinking to myself, oh yeah, the Lord of Bones character. Why don't we see him later in this? And then boom, Tormund smashes his face in. And I wrote down, oh, wait, never mind. Now I know why I don't remember him from later episodes. I just that was really funny because that's like the first thing that happens is he lands and he's just spouting off at the mouth to Tormund, and Tormund doesn't take that crap anymore. So funny.
And it's kind of interesting too. It's just a way to write off the character in the show because in the books, the Lord of Bones is he, okay, Amanda, you might have to correct me on this. I think might be a little bit fuzzy here. The Lord of Bones is actually the one who's burned at the stake, and Mance Rayder is secretly, due to Melisandre's magic, kind of cloaked to look like the Lord of Bones because Melisandre wanted to keep Mance Rayder alive for a little bit longer.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, he's given the bones as like a helps people see what they expect to see. So that helps with the glamour that she puts on him.
Yes.
Again, Melisandre. Smoke bomb.
So John meets with the council there, basically of the elders, and he has basically like, I think, and it probably partly because it's been drilled in my head so much of like listening to this one video I watched a long time ago of he has this great line of quotes there basically to convince the elders there that they should side with him of basically like the free folk can't stop these people, the Night's Watch can't stop the White Walkers there, and all the Southern Kings can't stop them, but together we can give these fuckers a fight there, which to me is just kind of perfectly sums up the situation that they're in here of like, hey, if we don't band together, kind of get you guys south of the wall and then figure out some battle plan, we are all just going to be meat for the army of the undead there, which just perfectly sums up the whole situation. And then in my mind, when we kind of start talking about this too, this whole episode really kind of, to me, and I'm probably going to anger Steven a little bit because Steven was the one who likes the politics of the show a lot more. This one kind of threw away the whole thing of like, politics don't really matter in a sense in this show because there is a much larger threat looming to the north there that it doesn't matter who sits on the Iron Throne. In the end, they would all become meat for the Night King's army there. So I guess I don't know kind of like where we want to start or how we want to even start talking about this part here, just because for the audience here, I mean, you've watched the episode. It's basically just they arrive at camp, the White Walkers show up, the White Walkers decimate basically all the wildlings. They have a battle there. John realizes he can kill a White Walker there with his sword. He stops the sword from hit the White Walker's ice sword from hitting him, shattering his blade, and is able to defeat then the White Walker. We get the ending shot there, basically with the Night King raising up his arms. It's a common meme that people have
Such
thrown
a
around
good,
there.
yeah.
But it's a great shot though of him slowly raising his arms, basically bringing everybody back who has been killed to be again part of his army. And then the ending shot there is basically the little boat sailing out of the harbor there that they're in, with the entire area surrounding of where Hardhome was, with all of this army of the dead rising up there.
Mhm.
Nick.
I had a noted question on here. Not really a question for everybody, but just from our own understanding. I think Tormund had made the comment 100,000 people were at Hardhome. Was that the right general number? Or was it, it wasn't a million, but it was a substantial amount of people. Like you made the reference about the small boats that they had, to get a couple people out. They weren't like huge galleons or, ships or anything. They were like small boats that they had, to get them back and forth. So there's a good number of that very large number of people who then became whites. And
Steven and I were talking when we were watching this episode about how like just all of a sudden a couple. I didn't write down her name. I didn't catch her name. The one of
Parsi.
what was it?
Parsi.
Of the free folk, like just such a strong, like well-written character that we, then we lose her almost immediately.
Yep.
But I love her because at one point when they're talking amongst each other, one of the guys says, "My ancestors would spit on me if I broke bread with a crow," and she says, "Well, so would mine. Fuck them. They're dead."
Yep. I had
Going-
that awesome line.
I was going to say,
Go
going
ahead.
on that, I think most of the chieftains there are incredibly compelling. I don't want to say well written because we don't hear too much about them, but they are compelling. You want to know more about the dude with the axe. You want to know more about the chick who just doesn't care about anything. Heck, you even want to know a little bit more about the Lord of Bones, which obviously we just talked about is different in the book than in the. But each of these characters is very, very compelling. And I don't know if it's pro Game of Thrones or anti Game of Thrones that you introduce such compelling characters for one episode and kill them.
I mean, isn't it though? They're more. Sorry to kind of like interrupt you. It's like, isn't it more though? Like we're given these kind of traits to these different clans there that we're introduced to, that are definitely interesting because we haven't followed these people before. We know nothing about them. I mean, the Thens we know eat people, and most of the wildlings just don't like the Thens in general there. And then the lady is a very strong character there too. Of like, well, I don't know if I could trust this Jon Snow fellow, but if Tormund says this is the thing to do, then this is what I'll do. So, Nick.
I just was going to touch on that very note. I had that same comment as well, Amanda. And then Parsi, because I was watching my show with subtitles so I could catch all the nuances in these scenes. And when I was watching it said Carsi, and then it said what she had said. So that's how I knew her name was Carsi.
Subtitles, Steven, aren't they nice?
No, they're not. They're horrible. Get over
Agree.
I love
Subtitles are
subtitles.
terrible.
Subtitles are amazing. Get over yourselves. Knowledge is power. And so
To be old like Nick, you're gonna need them.
What they say?
The first time through, I don't need it, but the second time, like, look, I could just
Right.
turn it down and not be deafened, but I'll still get everything.
Right. So yeah, but no, just like we're talking about here, the Fen guy with the axe was talking to Carsi, and she was saying what she felt. I also had down, isn't the giant in there too? 1-1. It's like so many awesome characters in this small hut who are all like, wow. Like, I mean, just like hearing everybody talk about everything. And then the comment you made there, if you say this is what we need to do, then we're with you, Tormund. I wrote it down. He said, Carsi gal says, if you say this is the way, we're with you, Tormund. And Tormund says, this is the way. And I wrote down afterwards, this is the way.
Oh my God.
Come on. How could you not? This is the way. This is the way. And so, yeah, but I had down, my ancestors would spit on me. This is the way. And then, yeah, nobody trusts Jon. Like, it's not like except Tormund. He's not able to talk them out of it. And I thought that was very telling too. That these characters that, again, we don't know a lot about still play true to what we perceive as their tropes, right? They're not going to be like, well, we fought you forever, but you have good words, Crow. They hate Jon. But the fact that Tormund, who they respect, has changed his opinion of it, they say that they'll turn them around. So I thought that was very telling. And I wrote that conversation down. There's one other scene here, and then I had one or two comments about the fight itself. But there's another comment where after the decision is made where they're going to start loading the boats, you see Ed walking around trying to make sure he has all the dragon glass that they passed out. And the giant 1-1 is looking at the dragon glass. And he's just kind of standing there, and he looks down at him, and he says, it's like the old tongue or something like that. But there's a subtitle, because, again, I'm watching with subtitles sometimes. He says, when like, what the hell do you want, or something like that. And you see there's a very pointed scene where one's just like staring at the dragon glass. The giants are notoriously old. Do you think he recognizes that, or he knows that that's something to be used against the White Walkers? We just made the reference that dragon glass, or in this case, we find out John's Valyrian steel is sufficient against them. Do you think that the giants would remember dragon glass?
I think Woon is the last. I mean, he's the last giant alive, and he's a younger giant, though. I think it's just him. I think it's maybe more of a scene for lightheartedness to kind of the seriousness of the scene. It's kind of like maybe lighten the tension somewhat before the giant bummer that comes after it, essentially.
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything really too much more to it than that.
Okay, you're wrong. Anybody else? Just something I thought was interesting that they focused on it. Just caught my attention. No, I guess I just had a couple comments about the battle itself. Did we want to break into those, or
back to the conversation? I wanted to quickly jump back. Wasn't there even like something said by John of like, I'm not asking you to I kind of forget how it goes. It's like, I'm not asking
to forget your dead or something.
Something, yeah.
I'm not asking you to forget your dead. I'm asking you to. I don't know what he says. Something about worrying about the living. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically like, I'm not asking you to forgive all of the terribleness that has gone on between us. I'm asking you basically just to come with me. Quote the famous Arnold Schwarzenegger, the literary master of our times. Come with me if you want to live.
Yes. Come with me if you want to live.
A Randy Savage quote and a Arnold Schwarzenegger quote in this episode.
See, we're cultured people here in this podcast, Gary.
Yes.
I also did want to what you were saying a little earlier, Shatsy, about the sorry, I don't want to skip any of your. If you had more going on, I just didn't even realize. I just kind of cut in there.
Go for it, all yours.
I apologize.
I don't think I had anything anyways, but go for it.
Okay. The politics of it and how it makes the politics not really matter or seem to matter, and how you said I disagree with that. And I do. I very much do. And I want to explain kind of why I feel like I disagree with that. And I disagree with it because there's this overarching threat, and you're right that they need to band together to fight the overarching threat, and that in the like massive scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. But or their petty squabbles don't matter, I should say. But when you focus in on the continent itself and on all these things, each of these people has a different way that they would fight this war against the White Walkers. And in that way, the politics of what's going on very much matters, because it determines who is going to take the lead against the White Walkers and how they are going to approach that. Will it be fire? Will it be throwing men into a maw? Will it be abandoning everybody up north and just trying to hold that wall? Each person has a very different strategic thought about how they want to fight these White Walkers. And when the politics come all together, they need to really try to come up with some sort of solution, which is a synthesis of several of these. And I think we do end up seeing that a little bit later, a synthesis of these solutions. But I think that if John had been a little bit more politically savvy, if he had had more allies, if he had more friends outside of just a couple in the Night's Watch, this might have been a lot easier. I think it was much harder than it needed to be because of the lack of politics and because of his single-minded approach to it. I'm not going to claim to know what he could have done better, because he was in a very difficult spot, but I feel like it could have been done better.
So maybe I'll back up my point too. It's not necessarily the overall politics of everything is now thrown by the wayside. It's more of like, for me, the short story shifted. We talked about the A story kind of always felt like it was King's Landing, because that is where essentially a lot of the main actors were, is the King's Landing storyline. And then also too, we had the B and C storyline of the Wall and Daenerys. It seemed like for me, from my perspective, and this is something we'll talk about kind of in later episodes, because Nick and I had this conversation a lot of like at some point in time. We've discussed that seasons 7 and 8 are shorter episodes. And it was kind of like a discussion of like, okay, what are they going to do with these last 2 seasons to kind of wrap everything up? And I'm trying not to spoil too much, but I mean, this thing continues on throughout the show here. So it's kind of like, okay, the story for me now shifted from the main story kind of being King's Landing, the political side of stuff going in King's Landing and everything like that, the petty squabbles, as you kind of put it there, to now it is, what are they going to do about this threat north of the Wall here? The ultimate threat upon humanity, basically, of like, if this thing continues to march south as they are trying to do, and everybody continues to fight amongst themselves, there will be no strategy in place to basically defeat them. The White Walkers will take Westeros, and that is it. Happy ending gone for the show there, pretty much. But then again, as we like to eloquently point out,
Yeah,
if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying
you haven't been
attention.
paying attention. Yeah.
Both true to the story and
The character
The character.
who says it.
Nick, though, to you.
I seem to be full of allegories today because I keep thinking of all these metaphors, but I think there's a little bit of nuance in both of those thoughts. I think that there are still some politics that need to be at play. I think I had a thought that I think people's motives go out the window, like who gets to sit on the Iron Throne and who's important and who needs to stick around. I think that is worthless, but who needs to influence who to get them to focus on the quintessential threat? The politics there are still needed. The allegory that I was just thinking of is climate change and global warming. Like, I mean, it's something that we would think of as the quintessential threat. And the aliens watching, Earth are like, why aren't people banding together? Why don't people realize this is something? There is actual proof. The people that are aware of it are shouting at the top of their lungs, and the great majority of people are not doing anything about it. That's exactly what's happening in this show, and the allegory there is that you still need those politics. I mean, John can shout till he's blue in the face, but unless people are aware of it, they're not going to be able to do anything, and the people with power are just going to ignore it and still do their own things, which we agree are worthless. But we need those people. You need the people who have the funds and the power and the ability to make those changes happen. So I think politics are not completely out the window. I think you still need to have those relationships and get that backing. So I think that John and Ed and Tormund and whoever else is alive on the boat is going to need some serious backup from the folks in the Southern Kingdoms. But yeah, they're definitely. We have a new shift in focus when we see the scale of things going on at Hardhome. John is stuck between a rock and a hard home.
I laughed, Nick. I wanted you to know that. I laughed at that.
Thanks, Amanda.
Amanda, did you have a point there?
Mine wasn't really about the politics. When we were talking about this, again, military strategy, not exactly my forte, but watching this episode, as amazing as it was, I have to question the fact that, like, what is Hardhome a village of the wildlings, or, like, what is the deal here? Because it's built with this little wooden wall, which does not seem to be the wildlings' way of doing things. So maybe they did it because they know this is, we need some kind of protection. But there is no fire arrows. There's, like, I would have dug a ditch or something so that I could make it full of stuff and set it on fire the second these guys, we know that these people are after. There was, like, no defenses.
Right.
They all, when they hear something happening, they all just turned and stared. I would have run for the damn boats so much faster, or at least launched the ones that were there.
We're perfectly fine unless they jump off the cliff here that's overhanging half our village.
Yeah, there seems to be some lack of military thing, and I don't know if we're just going to blame that on the fact that the wildlings don't have an organized or disciplined defense, or if we're going to say it's the show.
I was gonna say, like, I guess it just depends on what you assume that they're defending themselves from. Like, I assume it's just a barricade to keep animals out. Like, I don't think the Night's Watch is specifically attacking Hardhome. Like, as long as I think the Night's Watch is generally, if you don't try to get over the wall, you can do whatever the hell you want north of the wall. So generally, I think it's just to keep wildlife out and murdering tribes coming in the middle of the night. Like, I don't think it's supposed to be a wall built for that sort of siege. Tyler?
I was probably going to say it's probably more of just like a device for the show to kind of keep heightening the tension there, because I mean, it makes no sense that you have your docks and everything all shuttered behind this docks in this giant hut shuttered behind this village, and then some people kind of meandering in here while you have a whole other force over there on the other side sitting in that area there. So I think it's more of just something for the show. I think Hardhome like is essentially just a place for the wildlings to, I don't know, retreat to, regroup, regather, kind of go to. But as far as like the layout and everything like that, I think that's just more of a show thing, because in the books, John wasn't at Hardhome. I think it was just Ed who was at Hardhome, and he came back with basically the news that like shit went south there badly. Steven?
If the point is right that it's just for the show, I agree with that. In reality, it doesn't make any sense, and I wouldn't even say that they wouldn't have walls up to prevent raids from different clans or whatnot. They're all grouped together. There are no other clans. There's the White Walkers and there's them. And so if they suspending disbelief and saying that this is something for real, there is no point to have those sorts of walls. And especially like what Tyler was saying, next to the dock as they are, and how Amanda said, they should have been and would have been more prepared for an attack. They know that these White Walkers are out there. They had to have some sort of plan. These guys aren't idiots. And I don't know why the show wants to make them out to be stupid barbarians. They're not stupid barbarians. And they would have a plan if this got attacked. And I mean, one thing that I guess I didn't even think about until right now, what about their own ships? They have a dock. Do they not have any boats? What is their plan going forward here if they're attacked? Doesn't make any sense. So unless it's just movie magic, you're right. It doesn't make any sense.
I was thinking here too of like, well, do the wildlings really fully know about the White Walkers, or is it just some of them that do? I'd imagine they probably have been told that there's this other force out there. But then too, it goes back to like, well, they don't really have a true leader to follow anymore in Mance. So there's not somebody kind of going out there and rallying everyone to say, hey, even though we're camped here for however long, we need to be like, hopefully it's a short time, but we still need to set up defensive positions to protect everybody. So I'm probably still just going to keep falling on the side of like, this whole layout of the camp was set up for the show to facilitate of the tension of they shut the doors and there's all of these people getting slaughtered behind in the smoke and the fog that rolled in there. And then there's this, the tension rises as the White Walkers the Whites, I should say, slowly try to break through the fence there and everything like that. So, Nick?
Maybe I was just talking about the resources they have. Don't they have other ships? Don't they have things to use off their docks? Maybe they seem ill prepared because they have a Greyjoy kind of thing going on. Maybe they don't have a lot of trees to cut down and use as barriers. Maybe that's all they have is the only trees in that barren tundra that are big enough, strong enough are the ones they cut down. Just a thought. I don't know. Devil's advocate.
Or I mean, they're using like the docks and stuff for like small fishing boats and stuff like that, not big.
Right. Just to get out
galleons
further
and
to
stuff
fish
like
and
that.
get whatever they can get. I don't know.
Yeah.
Assuming it's just a fishing village, basically. Like that's
maybe that's why it's not prepared for a group of 100,000 or whatever. It's just this is that one small outpost that can be a similar small village, but holy crap, now everybody's there. It's a metropolis, and they're not prepared for that.
I think infrastructure. Yep, I think that's a great idea. That it's just a small, simple fishing village that just out of necessity became a refuge. And if that's the case, that makes a lot of sense. As to why it would be pale sides instead of real walls, why it would be just a small docks with no boats instead of anything else.
Yeah,
I still think they would have had a plan personally, and even if it was chaotic, they didn't have any leadership there, sure, but everyone panicked when they attacked. Absolutely panicked. There was no semblance of, hey, this is my group, my boys, on me, we're fighting here, sort of thing. I mean, there's a little bit of everyone to the wall sort of thing, but you'd see more of I would say, a disciplined attack or defense.
maybe everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face.
Right. Like I have to assume it was partially for the show and partially to show them as wildlings that they don't have much, but like things I have always like read in books but you rarely see portrayed is like when like a military group would stop for the night, like they don't just stop and put up their tent. Like they dig in, they put fortifications, they put some kind of things. And we can argue that the wildlings aren't a military force and they don't have all that, but they've been surviving with the others for how long now? I have to assume they would have a little more of some kind of rudimentary. I mean, with my complete lack of wildlife survival skills, would have done something to help survive. I have to assume they would have.
Great points there, discussion on that. Anyone have anything else we kind of want to touch on with Hardhome there? Gary's got something. He's got to wipe the chicken grease away from his face there real quickly.
He's eating chicken wings. Let's explain why he has chicken grease on his face. Those who can't see the video just assume he
Lather up with
perpetually
chicken
wrapped in
grease,
chicken
Nick.
grease.
Stop judging me. Lather up. Around the house covered in chicken grease. Okay, so in the ending, which as we've already pointed out, like they did a lot of the shape of Hardhome is very much designed for the show and for drama. Can those zombies not swim? Like, or did they kind of just let John go? Nick?
I think they let him go because I had down the giant 1/1 fighting the zombies is just awesome. Like he's like stomping on them and just like they're climbing on him, and he wades out into the water, not on a boat of his own, and he's just like whipping whites off him and throwing them into the ground. If they couldn't swim, I mean, I know that they're feral, but I would think that they would be more concerned about going in the water. But they're still like fighting him as he's wading out into the water in that scene. So I don't think that they can't go in the water. I think it's more so for the Night King's intimidation. Ha ha ha. Here's what you get to face.
They do state later on that they cannot swim.
Oh, well, I stand corrected.
I actually wondered that too, but that's for an episode much later.
Yeah, it's an episode a little bit later, but they do state they cannot swim. I don't know how they come to that conclusion. Yes. No, they show no logic behind it, but they state.
That's right. I'm on board now.
They run some scientific tests. They capture a bunch of whites. They dump them in the lake and be like, all right, come get us.
So the whites can't touch water, but what about the senior level?
The White Walkers?
Well, I don't know. We haven't captured one of them yet to try running tests with.
I would think that they could also, like, as I was like rewatching it and I kind of forgot how this scene ended, I was like, I thought maybe he had like ice, like Elsa from Frozen magic, where he was gonna like freeze the water. He was gonna walk out to John, like,
let it go.
Like, into the ground.
What up, bitch? I can walk out with ice water.
Let it go, Gary.
Did not happen. Very disappointed. Like, I had a much more fantastic plan for this episode.
Yep. John is taken out by the White Walker singing "Let It Go."
Oh, it should have ended. John's taken out by Elsa.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's secretly Elsa that shows up then too.
The crossover we didn't know we wanted.
Oh no. Oh no.
Elsa is the secret Targaryen.
Oh, hey, you know what? We could do this.
Ooh.
Elsa up north, How to Train Your Dragon down south. I'm just saying. Hit me up if you want to produce this, Disney.
Steven's called it. You guys can't do it without him.
That's true. Patent.
Wait, but we get the general sense that maybe they let them go. Like, I don't.
Yes.
It just.
That was what I felt like. Like he had so much power and so much He was kicking ass. Like there's no reason. But I am confused as to the physics of the whites in the water. Like it doesn't quite make sense to me.
Why they wouldn't be able to swim?
Yeah, like I mean, if they can jump off a cliff and whatever's left of them can continue crawling about their way, then what's the point of water? It's not like they clearly need oxygen.
I mean, worst case, you just make a zombie bridge. Like you just.
I guess I
make a
don't know
zombie
if they need
bridge.
oxygen. Maybe they do need oxygen.
They wouldn't, you'd think, because if they're dead, they're not breathing.
Think
several
so,
of them,
but
several of them are skeletons with no noses.
exactly, which was just my assumption. But on the other hand, I guess I don't honestly understand
Could
the
be
physics of
something
the whites
about-
anyway.
It could be something about water blacking the magic or something like that. I mean, who knows? They don't
Ooh,
explain it.
that's
Disintegrating
a
in
better
the water.
one.
I
Hmm.
mean,
That's a
some of
good
these have been
one.
dead for a little while. I think they go in the water. Whatever's holding them together just all of a sudden is no longer there.
The dry rot becomes wet, and then it just like disintegrates off them.
Yep. Their skin just kind of slides right off of them.
Oh boy, this is a great conversation.
How are those chicken wings there, Gary?
Problem solved. Here's how we can fight the others. Buckets of water off the top of the wall. Problem solved.
There we
Just,
go.
I'm melting, and fall to the ground. I had another question on this battle here. The little demon children that get Carsey, super sad. And also the thing of my nightmares. Little
Plot
kids,
armor.
undead kiddos terrify me.
Yeah.
She is like kicking ass. She's swinging back at swords, killing people left and right. She full on gives up when she sees the kids. Like she pulls her weapons in and holds them next to her, and just like lets them rush over her, and she freaks out. You already got your fingers up, so I'll let you say that, and then I've got the question I was going to ask, but I don't want to ruin my ooh thought.
Well, I have less of an ooh thought, and I have more of a. So yours might undermine what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is that earlier she's like looking at the kids that are alive around there, and she's like
Her
taking
kids.
care of them slightly. And I found it slightly sexist that it's the woman who, it's the woman who can't fight the kids. It's the woman who has to take care of the kids. It's the woman who, when it comes down to fighting the kids, won't even touch a sword because parental instinct or womanly instinct. And I found that really stupid, especially for fuck tradition sort of woman. Yeah, of course she's just gonna go, nope, this isn't it. No, she'd fight. And so I think that was a really shitty, scary as hell. Don't get me wrong. Completely agree with Nick. But stupid, and I feel sexist way to die.
I buy that.
Just based on order of operations, Steven agrees with me because I agree with him, which is that yes,
Hey, that does not count.
It seemed really sexist. Yeah, like that she would just sort of melt because they're small little zombie people. Like, obviously, it's already been documented that she has a child and she made sure her kid made it to the boats, but then yeah, she just kind of melts. Like it just seems, I feel like there was a better way to do that wasn't slightly less sexist, which is like maybe she cuts off their head and then she's crying like, why does it have to be children?
Maybe if she like simultaneously punches them in the chest and in the crotch.
Or just like fights them, just normally fights them. Hell, she can still be taken down and killed, and it's still fucking terrifying. Maybe she's trying to run away or escape from them, but just to give up, that just blows my mind.
I got news for you. I mean, I'm gonna be freaked out by a kid, but I'm still gonna.
Is that she gets murdered by her own child? Her own child like rips out her jugular.
See, maybe that, but they showed her getting her girls to safety or whatever.
Mhm.
But like,
Not
I
her
mean, I
kid.
tell you as a woman, if there's a kid coming after me that's half dead, I'm gonna take the axe to that kid. Yeah, I might be pulling like a crying while I'm doing it, but I'm gonna take the axe.
What?
Things I never knew about
Why
Amanda
am I
until
doing
today. Why are you making me do this? And she brings the axe down multiple times.
If the kid's gonna kill me, I'm gonna.
If
There's
there's a kid coming at me, I'm gonna take an axe to that kid.
if it's undead. If it's an undead kid coming at
if
me
it's
with an
undead.
axe.
Not
Yeah,
with
I
the
mean, not just
disclaimers
a
in there.
regular
Now
kids
there's
coming out with an
disclaimers.
axe, we might have a problem too. But that's a
I
different
think they
problem.
missed the opportunity to have that moment have some emotional weight because It's not like a kid that you were introduced to at the beginning, like a couple minutes earlier.
I think
Well,
that would have been. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I think it carries emotional weight, but not if you think about it too hard. That's the thing of like, I'm gonna say this now here, and it's going to come up probably a lot more as we continue on our discussion with the show. The show slowly loses more and more of like its detailed, its depth to it. It becomes a lot more of a surface level show that you're watching. So this is kind of just like, there's no, like, yes, it would have been better had she fought back and still succumbed to the children demons there, but it hits that emotional value that you, if you don't think about it, it's like, oh, sad, she must be thinking of her children, and she just gives up her will to fight there. When in reality, it's like, if you put a little bit more time into it, it's like, it would have been probably better of just like, she stood her ground and went down swinging against zombie children.
This is lazy writing.
Yes,
It's just like,
this is an opportunity for you to say poor writing,
No,
Gary.
it's not an opportunity.
It is poor writing for Gary. This is a perfect time for him to say this was poor writing.
This is we're not there yet. I am acknowledging that I'm changing.
We're teetering.
Did episode 0. We did episode 0, and I acknowledge that my view is changing from where I thought it was at this point and halfway through season 5. But I am not ready to start throwing lazy writing under the bus.
No, see, we're on the tilt.
No, not even
written
there
some
yet.
characters a little better
Making
to
the
give him
approach.
that emotional weight. Like, honestly, I will admit that they gave whatever that lady's name is enough emotional weight because you got to see her interact and you got to have her communicate a couple times. So her death had some emotional weight. Probably the only character from Hard Home who had any emotional weight. Maybe the Giant, but the Giant survived. So, was there someone else?
Yeah,
Steven?
I'd say that the tattoo skull guy, he goes out kind of cool, and he has
Finn?
some.
Finn? How does he go?
Yeah,
He goes out like a sissy girl there, basically.
What's he do?
okay, but at least he's like he overcomes his prejudices. He goes in, like basically fight him with it, like, oh, I'm gonna pull for this guy, and then he gets his ass kicked. And I mean,
he's the one who introduces the fact that you take a regular sword to a White Walker sword there, and it's going to shatter, and then he
Yes.
just gets
'cause he
stabbed
fights,
in the
he
gut.
fights the White Walker with the beard.
Yes, he goes
And
out
there's-
like a Sally though.
Does
Oh.
he get stabbed or like?
Yeah,
what
he
happens?
gets I think he tries to block the he tries to
He
swing, I think,
smashes
at the
the
White
sword.
Walker. The White Walker blocks it. His sword shatters because he's already lost his axe at this point. And then the White Walker just stabs him. He's like, "Get out of here, you sissy."
You sissy. That's what he says.
Exactly.
don't be an economic sissy man.
Okay, so here's I like the thought I had is something I'm gonna hit you with here in a second. But the thought also, yeah, like if we see her get her kids, try to get them down to the docks, and then like we see later one of the demon children is her child, that would have been much more compelling. That she would be like, "Oh, I can't kill my own kid." That would have been really interesting. I like that thought. That made me go, "Ooh." Here's the other thought that I have, and knowing things in the future aside, what do we think about the thought that the little demon children are Craster's kids that were taken by the White Walker?
No, I believe all of Craster's kids are, I think, implied to be the White Walkers, not the Whites, because those
Think
are
so?
those are more like children. Like there's some of them in wildling outfits and everything like that, which I don't think the army of the undead's going to go around. Oh, you need a coat over there. We're going to get you a coat because it is cold up here. So
Might have like a
they're
backpack
all
project or something.
they're all dead wildling people who died as children there, basically. I don't think they have anything to do with Craster.
Okay. In that moment, I paused that video because I like to give myself night terrors for some reason. And I just had noted that there were a couple girls, but predominantly those demon children were all boys. And that just spawned in my head that, ooh, I wonder if they're trying to imply that these are Craster's kids or something or anything like that, because most of them were boys, young children. It's just interesting is all. Do White Walkers age? If they're taken as babies in the woods, would they be young children?
I think like I don't think it's covered in the books because the whole Night King and everything in the books is completely different than the show. I think the show tries to imply with the whole zombie baby from the Night King there that those things end up being the Lieutenant White Walker guys underneath the Night King, but all of the children and stuff are just dead wildling children in that instance. All right. Did we have anything else we wanted to cover then about Hard Home?
I have one last one here.
Okay.
Just a general question. There's a distinct moment. I actually found that the exact time. It's at 53 minutes and 50 seconds at the very end when the White Walker swings and is blocked by Jon's sword. And we see Jon like, holy crap. But there's a distinct moment in that second where the White Walker's eyes are bright white too, going, what the crap? There's a classic meme where it's like, did you see that crap? Yeah, I saw that shit. Why do we think that the White Walker is surprised? Do you think it's because this person has a Valyrian steel sword, or that the White Walkers didn't know that their weapons could be blocked?
I think that's the simplest answer is they just didn't. I don't think it has anything to do with the Valyrian sword, although we obviously know Jon's sword is Valyrian steel. I think it was just the surprise of how are you blocking my attack here, which would normally shatter other swords? I think that's just honestly it.
I entirely agree with that. I think it's number 2. I think he wasn't prepared for it. And I will say, though, while that scene was playing, I had the Lord of the Rings, which is amazing, than the real return of the anything Gary. But
ending with a disagreement with Gary.
That sword was broken.
Yeah, I could see that.
It has been reforged. All right. We cover everything then we want to for this episode. It's looking like it. All right. So that'll do it then for us here. Our next session, we will be discussing episode 9, The Dance of Dragons, and episode 10, Mother's Mercy. So that'll do it then for us here.
Is that the end of the season? Is it?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
next one is.
Mother's Mercy is the end of the season, yes. So we will be wrapping up season 5 after our next recording here. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Hope you have a good one.
Bye.